Midnight, silence reigns. In a northern territory village, the long, frigid nights drive villagers to taverns, seeking warmth and strong spirits. Despite the hour, the tavern is bustling. Outside, a blizzard rages. Inside, firelight, the scent of roasted meat, and alcohol offer a reprieve. Snow's letting up? How long will this last? I muttered, gazing at the storm while downing more liquor. 2 days ago, I was a corporate slave on vacation. I died in a mountain ravine accident after my holiday. I awoke after being pulled from an icy river by fishermen. I realized I was in a medieval-style fantasy world, inhabiting the body of myself, a disgraced northern baron. This world is home to elves, dwarves, orcs, and more. Magic exists here. It is a monopoly of the nobility, an insurmountable barrier between them and commoners. No peasant lineage ever resonates with magic power, save for the occasional noble bastard. Purer bloodlines yield stronger magic power and easier advancement. I, however, am a muggle. My father, Victor Crane, was a prodigy who reached Tier 7 Warlock before 30. Victor vanished after an accident, leaving infant me behind. My mother remains a mystery. Rumors range from demon to princess, but the truth is unknown. Perhaps out of pity or lingering influence, I was granted a barren northern fief, effectively a life sentence of exile. The north is a wasteland of ice, blizzards, and legendary demons. It was a polite way of sentencing me to death. Even then, my kin poisoned me with a slow-acting toxin to ensure I died during the journey. The poison triggered my fall into the river, where the modern me took over. In the dim light, my reflection reveals a handsome, disheveled, and melancholic face. You had it rough, brother. I toasted my reflection. Thanks for the second life. I drank, finding hope in survival despite the bleak future. I sat in a corner, enjoying the view of the snow. My Blackstone castle is vast, but decrepit. It lacks furniture and is freezing, empty, and drafty. I arrived in the north entirely alone, without a single attendant. Servants and guards avoided the assignment, knowing the north meant certain death for a magic-less waste. They refused to throw their lives away. My family didn't care, provided I died far from home. I was only at the tavern to escape the cold. I ignored the traveler's tall tales. Time to go, I decided, pouring the last of my drink. Suddenly, frost coated the inside of my glass, freezing the liquid. The frost vanished as quickly as it appeared, and the drink flowed again. I felt a lingering chill as I swallowed. It was no hallucination. Before I could process this, a cloaked figure entered the tavern. The figure was draped in black, face hidden, but the frame suggested a woman. Strangely, her cloak was free of snow. Walking through such a blizzard without a trace of white? Interesting. She avoided the crowd. Hot milk and bread, please, she requested, her voice cold and clear. She kept her hood up, remaining an outsider. The meal was prepared. As the waiter approached, the tray was lifted by an unseen force and settled before her. Magic. This was my first encounter with magic, piquing my curiosity. She ate quickly, clearly famished. Suddenly, the sound of galloping horses and metallic scraping echoed from outside. Too fast for a merchant caravan. A dozen armored cavalrymen? Why here? The tavern door was kicked open. The door remained ajar, letting the blizzard howl inside. Who the hell is that? Close the door, you idiot. A drunkard cursed, sobered by the sudden chill. Only stiff, slow footsteps answered. Clack, clack, black metal boots crushed the floorboards, leaving a trail of frost. Everything the frost touched withered. The drunkard realized his feet were encased in spreading ice. Sensation vanished from his legs. The room's temperature plummeted. Firelight dimmed as darkness encroached. My legs. The man stared in horror as a massive, frost-covered black gauntlet reached for him. Frost reached his forehead, freezing him into a statue. The gauntlet gripped his head, fingers tightening. Cracks spiderwebbed across his frozen form. With a sickening crunch, the ice statue shattered, along with the flesh and bone inside. The freezing was so absolute that no blood spilled, but the sound of breaking bone was audible to all. In a heartbeat, the drunkard was reduced to red-black shards. I, facing away, didn't see the carnage, but the frost stopped abruptly at my feet. Or rather, it dissipated. As the eerie frost touched me, a strange tree manifested in my mind. It centered on a single point, with 4 main branches spreading outward, sprouting countless smaller twigs. The branches held nodes with faint, illegible inscriptions, currently too dim to read. However, the central node was clear. Core talent activated, magic immunity. Ah! A scream shattered the tavern's silence as a waiter dropped his tray, the spilled liquor instantly freezing into crystals. Patrons watched in horror as a drinking companion was reduced to mangled remains. The culprit was revealed, a towering knight clad in black armor. Though a skull helmet hid its face, the cold, blue flames burning in its eye sockets were terrifying. Fear and the unnatural chill gripped the onlookers. The black armor ignored the carnage, stepping over the remains and scanning the room mechanically. With a screech of grinding metal, it turned and issued a silent command to its subordinates. Several knights exited, followed by the sound of retreating hooves. The remaining knights surrounded the tavern. With all exits sealed, the patrons faced certain death. Enemy black armor leader marked as high threat unit. What is this? I wondered. A floating text appeared before me, with a phantom pointer indicating the lead knight. I was certain this was no hallucination. I noticed the girl I had been sitting with had vanished, leaving only coins behind. The lead knight approached my corner, stopping at the girl's former table. Its skull helmet rotated with a harsh, metallic rasp. It stared at me, then smashed the table, shattering the wine jug and spraying liquid everywhere. While others trembled, I remained seated, still focused on my drink. What a waste, I sighed, standing up. At 1.85 meters, I was still a head shorter than the knight. The knight tilted its head, seemingly surprised by the youth's defiance. I met its gaze, feeling no fear. He's dead, the patrons whispered. They viewed me as a walking corpse for provoking the monsters. The lead knight struck at my face without warning. The blow was fast and powerful. A direct hit would be fatal. Yet, the fist stopped inches from my face. I had caught the strike with my left hand. It seemed fate had balanced my lack of magic with a hidden gift. Though I lacked magic or battle chi, my body possessed the strength of a mud rock golem. To my family, I remained a magic-less failure, an outcast. Now, however, my dormant combat instincts surged to the surface. My body reacted automatically, as if guided by muscle memory. It was a primal, instinctive response. I twisted the knight's arm and slammed my shoulder into its chest, the sound of warping metal echoing through the room. A visible shockwave rippled from my shoulder. Bang! The knight's armor cracked, and it was sent flying into the stone wall. Fortunately, no bystanders were hit. I was stunned. I had acted purely on reflex, crushing the monster with ease. The knight struggled against the wall, metal groaning. Frost crawled over the armor, freezing the debris. It broke free, the heavy thud of its boots chilling the room. As it stepped forward, frost spread from its feet, and it drew its heavy sword. Its damaged armor repaired itself, sprouting jagged ice thorns. Frost surged toward me. What is this? I examined my hands, realizing these knights were weaker than they appeared. I barely noticed the encroaching frost. Contact with the frost meant instant freezing. Yet, the frost dissipated upon touching me, like snow hitting lava. It works. The knight swung its sword at my neck, but it moved too slowly. To me, time seemed to slow down. I dodged the blade and struck the knight's wrist with my elbow. The sword fell. I caught it and drove it through the knight's chest. The blade pierced the heart and exited the back, yet no blood flowed. The blue flames in the skull's eyes vanished, and the armor collapsed into a pile of scrap. Golden light flowed from the remains into my mind. High threat unit cleared. EXP plus 178. Before I could process this, 2 more knights lunged at me. They flanked me, but I felt a surge of adrenaline and excitement. The thrill of life or death combat was a new, intoxicating experience. Despite the danger, my blood pulsed with a primal urge to fight. My body's reflexes made the knights look like clumsy puppets. They attacked my neck and knees simultaneously, seemingly sealing my escape. Any normal person would be trapped. I ignored the blades, leaping and rolling through the air to slip between them. They were too slow. The blades didn't even touch my clothes. Landing, I slashed, severing the heads of both knights. The blue flames in their helmets flickered out. EXP plus 42, consecutive kills plus 8. EXP plus 42, consecutive kills, plus 15. A dozen more knights swarmed me, but I remained calm, effortlessly dodging and counterattacking. The black-armored knights' swarm tactics failed against me. Their dense attacks couldn't even graze my clothes, only hindering each other. Before absolute numerical superiority, technique is irrelevant. I decapitated the final knight, ending the lopsided battle. The hollow skull helmet rolled away, devoid of blood. A brave onlooker checked the helmets, finding them all empty, sparking widespread panic. I noticed my mental talent tree shifting. Level 3. 2 talent points available. Allocate. Talent points? Is this a game? But it feels so real. I grumbled while inspecting the mysterious tree. With no instructions or guidance, I cursed the hypothetical riddle-loving developer. At least it didn't seem like a Souls-like game. My magic immunity had clearly functioned. Otherwise, I'd be as shredded as the knights. Sorry, but having magic immunity means doing whatever I want. The ominous frost was merely a visual effect, harmless to me. For branches lit up, though most remained shrouded in gray. The only instruction: unlock prerequisite nodes first. The branches represented technology, body, reaction, and composure. Inspired by 2077, I checked the available nodes. Technology. Introduction to scientific research unlocks basic blueprints. Body. Vigorous blood enhances physique/stamina. Reaction. Keen insight improves perception and passive hints. Composure. Light-footed increases movement speed. I was impressed. These were simple, raw stat boosts, exactly what I needed. With 2 points, I chose Vigorous Blood and Keen Insight. I tapped the plus icons to confirm. My stamina surged, and my perception of the surroundings sharpened significantly. Kicking aside a helmet, I vanished into the snowy night, leaving the armor behind. Frost retreated before me as if bowing to a king, though the blizzard obscured my vision. Despite being only meters from the castle, the deep night and heavy snow left me completely disoriented. The howling wind reduced visibility to mere meters. Returning to the tavern was impossible. I had walked in circles, losing my own tracks and failing to identify even nearby landmarks. I was lost. Regretting my haste, I cursed my lack of enhanced perception. Suddenly, a prompt appeared. Horse tracks ahead. Following them may help. I spotted the tracks to my right, leading into the distance. It was a large group, likely dozens of horses. Thanks to my enhanced perception, I noticed the tracks were fresh, avoiding burial by the snow. They were less than 10 minutes old. The crescent-shaped prints indicated they were shod, meaning they were domesticated. Wild horses don't wear horseshoes. Given the pattern, they were hunting something, likely related to the black-armored knights. I followed the tracks. My enhanced physique allowed me to sprint for 30 minutes without fatigue. I soon found a dead black warhorse by the road. A massive ice spike had pierced the horse's abdomen and spine, pinning the knight atop it. The rider was another hollow black-armored knight. I despised these empty, eerie suits of armor. The ice spike, however, piqued my interest. It wasn't natural. It was solidified magic, as my prompt confirmed. Identification: Frost Shadow Blade, Tier 3 Ice Spell. The spike was a beautifully crafted, razor-sharp crystalline cone, thicker than my arm. Yet, seeing it impale horse and rider was a gruesome sight. Further along, more corpses of horses and knights appeared. The tracks scattered. Warning: multiple hostile targets ahead. The blizzard thinned, revealing the scene. I was shocked. 7 black-armored knights surrounded a lone, slender figure. They kept their distance, wary but maintaining a tight perimeter. It was the girl from the tavern, draped in her black robe. A strange coincidence to meet again. Ice spikes materialized around her, absorbing the ambient cold. She launched 8 spikes simultaneously at one night. My previous concept of magic was limited to stereotypical wizards with wands and chants. This girl's casting was fluid, lacking the tedious incantations or array drawing I expected. Her manipulation of magic was elegant and mesmerizing. The spike struck, the knight parried some, but its slow speed led to its destruction. 6 knights remained. She seemed capable of winning and escaping. However, her movements grew sluggish. The attack had drained her significantly. The battle had exhausted her magic and stamina. The knights, sensing her weakness, tightened their circle. As her breathing grew ragged, the knights prepared to strike the killing blow. They didn't realize I was watching from the shadows. Having met her once and hating the knights, I decided to intervene. If I let the black armor kill the girl, who would guide me through this wasteland? I couldn't ask mindless machines. Exhausted and drained of magic, the girl gritted her teeth. For a warlock, magic depletion is as fatal as a stopped heart. She felt a needle-like pain in her mind and a crushing weakness. She was frustrated and confused. She had been careful, yet the black armor tracked her relentlessly, even endangering passers-by. These relentless killing machines never stopped, and in this frozen world, no one would answer her cries. She tried to resist, but days of flight had exhausted her magic, and her remaining ice shards fell to the ground. As the black armor raised its heavy sword, the girl, unable to stand, closed her eyes in resignation. She had done all she could, holding on to hope until the very end. Was this the end? Yet, the expected pain never came. She opened her eyes to see the black armor falling apart, its pieces scattered before her. A stranger had appeared, stepping on the armor and retrieving my sword. With swift movements, I dismantled the remaining 5 units in seconds. "Are you all right?" the man asked, but the girl, having reached her limit, collapsed into the snow, unconscious. Her hood fell away, revealing a delicate, ethereal face with rosy skin and long, gentle eyelashes. Most notably, pointed ears peeked through her soft, silver-white hair. I blinked, surprised. "You're an elf?" A drop of water from the cave ceiling landed on the girl's forehead, sliding down her nose like a crystal snowflake. The cold touch stirred her, her eyelids fluttered. I glanced at her and tossed a dry branch into the fire. The flames flared up, crackling as the wood burned. I had found this snow-covered cave as a temporary shelter. It was small, but sufficient for 2. An ice-fueled wolf inside had growled, trying to claim the space. After a friendly negotiation, the wolf now cowered at the entrance like a pet. "Just one night," I said, tossing it a rabbit leg. "Don't be so miserable." Watching the wolf whine, I felt a pang of amusement. It acted just like a disgruntled husky. I had once wanted a pet, but my work schedule made it impossible. In this world, however, that didn't matter anymore. The elf girl awoke, disoriented. She realized she was in a dark cave with a stranger and a wolf, her magic completely spent. Though the black armor was gone, her situation felt dire. She checked her cloak. It was still neat. She instinctively pulled it tight, backing against the wall for security. She felt safer with her back to the stone. Seeing me remain still, she relaxed slightly. Her hostility faded as she realized I wasn't attacking. She was safe for now. This man must have saved her. Why would he risk his life against those monsters? She couldn't fathom it. Noticing my gaze, she realized her hood had fallen, exposing her pointed ears. Her identity was exposed. Elves were beautiful, long-lived, and natural-born warlocks. This made them highly sought-after goods in the dark corners of the world. "Awake? Eat something." I offered her a piece of roasted rabbit. Sensing her wariness, I kept my distance. I realized she was eyeing the wolf at the entrance. I waved the wolf away, and it scrambled out into the storm. "Now can we talk?" I asked. "Thank you for saving me," the girl replied, her voice like a clear spring. A suffocating silence followed. I, socially inept, didn't know how to converse in such a situation. Talk about the weather? The howling storm outside? Life? They were different species. The world? I was a newcomer here and knew nothing of the Northern Territory. As I struggled for words, I noticed frost spreading from the girl onto the walls and floor. She was shivering, her face pale despite her efforts to hide it. Why didn't she move closer to the fire? Was she just shy? Regardless, she was freezing. Her skin was turning purple. I worried she wouldn't survive the night. If she died, I might be trapped here forever. In this unfamiliar Northern Territory, she was my only hope of finding my way home. Please don't come closer. You'll get frostbitten." The girl spoke urgently as I approached. She was suffering from the seed of frost inside her. When her magic was full, she could suppress it. Now, she had to endure the agony with sheer willpower. The fight had drained her, and the cold was uncontrollable. It was a curse, an internal chill that froze anyone who touched her. She had never known an embrace. Her memories were as frozen as her heart. Since waking up months ago, she had been a wanderer, unable to fit in anywhere. She craved warmth, but those who got close were always hurt. Guilt-ridden, she chose to walk the world alone. She expected me to be hurt by the frost, but I seemed unaffected. All right, I won't move. Don't be nervous. I approached, crouched down, and leveled my gaze with the girls. At least move closer to the fire. You won't be so cold. Surprised by my lack of reaction, the girl tentatively inched toward the flames. The fire's warmth seemed to ease her chill. Are you okay? She whispered. Me? I'm perfectly fine. I was confused. The closer you are, the deeper the seed of frost bites. Yet you seem unaffected? I realized she was referring to the magical nature of her affliction. Do you want me to be hurt? I asked, reaching out to test my theory. She flinched, terrified I would turn into an ice statue like others before me. Trapped against the rock wall, she met my calm eyes. She saw only tranquility. She could touch me if she reached out. Normally, no living thing could survive this close to her. Yet, I defied her logic. Don't be afraid. I'm fine. She hesitated, fearing her touch would destroy this fragile hope. Trust me. Encouraged, she touched my fingertips, then my palm. Blue frost patterns immediately began to spread from my fingertips. No, stop. As the curse flared, she tried to pull away, but I gripped her wrist. Don't worry, it's fine. I watched the frost spread toward my wrist, only for it to vanish abruptly. Is that it? As the frost faded, a memory shattered in her mind. A dome of ice pillars, 12 masked priests chanting around an altar. In a floating ice coffin lay an elf who looked exactly like her. Frost as bone, snow as skin. You are our only hope. The vision ended, leaving her back in reality. With the frost gone, her anxiety vanished. She felt warmth from me, a sensation so foreign it chased away her inner cold. See, no cold, no pain, right? I sighed in relief, ready to leave this place. You shouldn't have saved me. Her voice was weak, but the icy edge was gone. The firelight softened her pale features. Why? Are you afraid of me? My hair. I think it's beautiful. What's wrong with it? It's the color of disaster. Everyone near me suffers. The seed of frost is proof. Leave me, or you'll get hurt. She curled into a ball. I found the world's prejudice against silver hair absurd. It was pure discrimination. I didn't care. Leah, I'm lost. Help me reach the town, and I'll protect you. Leah stared, stunned by my request. The town is 12 miles away. How did you get lost here? I hadn't realized I'd traveled that far. You'll help? You saved me, so yes. But stay away from me for your own safety. Don't worry. I'll handle the fighting. What's your name? Leah. She coughed, her face turning paler from the exertion. Rest now. We'll leave when the storm settles. Before I finished, Leah fell into a deep sleep. She looked peaceful, her brow finally unfurrowed. Seeing her shiver, I draped my coat over her. Her breathing steadied, and I relaxed. A notification appeared. Leah, Tier 6 Warlock. Magic exhausted, body failing. If the curse is broken, she will transcend. She is a lonely star, do not let her down. A Tier 6 Warlock who can transcend. I whispered to her sleeping form. I won't let you down. I stoked the fire and leaned back, feeling surprisingly warm despite the storm. I needed rest. Leah? Wake up, time to go. Leah woke, alert at first, then relaxed as she recognized her surroundings. Morning. Almost noon. Let's go. She paused, feeling something was different. Usually, she woke in agony as the seed of frost wreaked havoc on her magic. Sleep was normally a nightmare of pain. Yet today, she felt fine. The seed was dormant. It was a miracle. I had been awake for hours, my energy fully restored. I had hunted snow rabbits and gathered berries for our journey. The black armor enemies had pushed me to level 5, granting 2 talent points. I spent them on Introduction to Scientific Research and Light-Footed. A flood of information surged into my brain. My head throbbed as blueprints for basic items filled my mind. They were basic, white tier blueprints. Research tiers went from white to red. It was just the start. Even a diamond pickaxe starts with a wooden one. Progress takes time. I wondered if maxing out my research tree would eventually unlock blueprints for internal combustion engines, firearms, semiconductors, or even power armor. My talent description suggested that with sufficient materials and tools, I could manifest these blueprints into reality. While there was a failure rate, repeated attempts would increase my proficiency and success odds. I lamented that I couldn't simply synthesize a workbench for mass production, which would be far more efficient. Notably, the icefield wolf, whose den they occupied, returned that morning. After I fed it half a rabbit, it seemed to latch onto me, perhaps finding the human campfire preferable to the brutal cold. I teased the wolf for losing its ferocious edge, though I secretly missed its original, untamed demeanor. It turned out that the transition from wolf to dog didn't take long. When they left the cave, the wolf whimpered until Leah, moved by pity, allowed it to join them. I put the beast to work, salvaging the leftover black armor and weapons from their previous encounter. I fashioned a makeshift sled from blueprints and harnessed the wolf to it, ensuring the animal earned its keep. It would also add some life to my otherwise empty castle. I looked at Leah's thin frame and sighed, wishing she could stay with me. With Leah guiding them and the wolf hauling their luggage, their travel speed increased significantly. The journey remained eerily quiet. The mysterious black armor forces did not reappear. However, the Northern Territory was not truly empty. As the blizzard cleared, hidden threats began to stir. Neither I nor Leah realized they were being watched. Leah grew close to the wolf, naming it Zero, and losing her initial wariness. Unlike me, Zero was not immune to the debuff caused by Leah's Seed of Frost. Despite its natural cold resistance, Zero kept a safe distance to avoid being frozen solid. Leah wanted to pet Zero but refrained, sighing at the limitations imposed by her curse. Look, the town is ahead. Following Leah's finger, I spotted irregular dark specks on the horizon. The blizzard had subsided, clearing their view. Even from a distance, the unfamiliar town was clearly visible. As they approached, they saw villagers greeting each other and hunters carrying game along the forest paths. People were smiling, relieved that the storm had passed and the sky was clearing. For the Northern Territory in winter, this was a rare, pleasant day. I noticed a flicker of longing in Leah's eyes, quickly replaced by her usual loneliness. She pulled her hood tight, avoiding the villagers and appearing completely out of place. I'll leave you here. Goodbye. Leave? Leah, where will you go? Leah was stunned by the question, her eyes dimming as she admitted she had nowhere to go. If you don't know where to go, why not stay here for a few days? If I stay, I'll only bring trouble. I am a symbol of disaster. The local lord would never welcome me. I should leave before I'm driven out. Leah refused, but I pressed. So, if the lord agreed, you would stay? Crane, do you know the lord here? She looked at me with desperate hope, unaware that I was struggling to hide my smug grin. Know him? Not exactly. Leah's hope vanished instantly. She had expected this, yet the disappointment still stung. I didn't let her suffer long. Because I am the lord here. Crane, you. Leah stared in disbelief, her pointed ears twitching beneath her silver hair. Don't believe me. Seeing her shock, I removed my glove to reveal my family crest. The crest featured an elegant, starry pattern, reminiscent of the brightest constellations. I found it ironic given my poisoning, but it served well as proof of identity. Leah looked up, stunned. It's real? Then, how did you get lost in your own territory? My confidence shattered. Ahem, I only arrived a few days ago. Last night was my first time venturing this far. I cleared my throat, regained my composure, and reached out. So, will you stay? Leah hesitated, caught between her disbelief and the reality of the situation. Because of the Seed of Frost and her silver hair, a symbol of calamity, she had been an outcast since she woke up. Her magical talent was dismissed as a soul-selling trade, and people shunned her as a bad omen. Yet, this man was immune to her curse, saved her from the black armor, and showed her kindness. She thought she was used to loneliness, but I was the first person to offer her a hand, and she couldn't let go. Crane, are you sure? I don't remember my past, and those black armor soldiers are hunting me. They will come here. Of course. You're my subject now. Protecting my people is my duty, so don't worry about that. However, there are conditions. Look, I've drafted a labor contract. If you agree, just sign here. I produced a 1-year labor contract. Crane, this is... Realizing the term contract was foreign, I adjusted my explanation. Think of it as a 1-year agreement. I'm new here and don't know anyone else but you. In exchange, I'll provide safety, housing, food, and pay. If you're satisfied, we can renew it. As you can see, I'm just a down-and-out northern baron with nothing but a castle and this village. But I can give you a promise. A promise. Yes. Within my territory, you can walk freely without disguise, free from discrimination or danger. Leah, are you willing? She looked uneasy, avoiding my gaze. Do I really deserve that? I don't believe in those empty legends. You shouldn't have to live under such a burden, suffering in solitude. I looked her in the eyes with unwavering resolve. The past is over. Whatever the future holds, I am reaching out my hand to you now, Leah. Leah hesitated no longer, firmly grasping my hand, as if seizing her own future. She had made her choice. I marveled at how easily I had recruited a Tier 6 warlock, and a white-haired elf at that. It was a dream come true. Were Tier 6 warlocks terrifying? Yes. In this world, warlocks were ranked from Tier 1 to Tier 9. Nobles naturally resonate with magic power, reaching Tier 1 warlock status at birth, but most stagnate at Tier 3. Few reach Tier 5, but even a Tier 3 warlock is vastly superior to any ordinary human. The power gap is immense, like comparing a professional to a novice. Tier 6 warlocks are rare, even in southern kingdoms. A single one can rival an army of 1,000. My father, who reached Tier 7 before 30, was a generational genius. Such power can raise a fortified city in less than a day. Tier 8 warlocks are human nukes, capable of city-erasing magic, the pinnacle of known power. There are only a handful of them on the entire continent. Tier 9 is likely mere legend, representing the mastery of fundamental rules. I and Leah approached the castle, our shadows merging on the road. Look, that's it. Zero, slow down. I called out. Leah looked toward the mountain-embedded castle, bathed in afternoon sunlight. It was pitch black, topped with snow, like a monument to the night. The castle's massive silhouette cast a long shadow over the snowy peaks. The surrounding villages looked insignificant beside it. Crossing the drawbridge, Leah noted the walls were made of ancient black stone. The stones were weathered and rough, but remained incredibly sturdy. Patches of moss and vines clung to the walls, adding a touch of life. Despite the rusted chains and signs of age, the castle's grandeur was undeniable. The heavy gate stood unlocked. I pushed it open, stirring up clouds of dust as we entered. The courtyard was cracked and overgrown, clearly neglected for years. A snow-filled, dry fountain sat in the center, surrounded by weathered stone carvings. I moved deeper into the castle while Zero frolicked in the snow like a hyperactive puppy. The previous lord had stripped the castle of all staff and soldiers, leaving only a shell. The interior was dim and drafty, though Leah found the natural atmosphere strangely comforting. We're here. Pick any room you like. It's a bit messy, I said. Leah smiled, touching the rough stone walls. It's perfect. Despite its emptiness, the castle gave her a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in ages. She hadn't seen a single soul since they arrived. Was I truly living here entirely alone, without even a servant? She glanced at me, thinking I was the loneliest lord she'd ever met. I led her to a relatively intact room. It was sparse but clean enough for rest. I lit the fireplace to ward off the chill. It's humble, but it's yours. Leah nodded happily. Rest well, or explore. Find me in the study on the second floor if you need anything. I left her to settle in, figuring she needed time to adjust. I realized I needed to acquire furniture. Tables, chairs, and wardrobes were essential. I couldn't let Leah live in a room with nothing but a bed. The previous lord was a miser, stripping the place bare before leaving. I hadn't even received a proper handover. The place was abandoned when I arrived. It was an unprofessional, insulting way to pass on a lordship. Not a single utensil or piece of furniture remained. It was as if the place had been looted. Even the heavy stone carvings were left only because they were too cumbersome to move. Regardless, I would just have to craft what I needed. With my vast library of blueprints, crafting furniture would be simple once I had materials. At least the presence of an elf and an icefield wolf made the place feel less desolate. I returned to my study alone. Looking at the empty, damp room, I sighed at the state of my new home. It was a ruin, cold, drafty, and far below the living standards I was accustomed to. No water, no electricity, and moldy floors. My old apartment was a palace by comparison. Still, I was a lord now, and at least I didn't have a mortgage. I reviewed the blueprints unlocked by my Introduction to Scientific Research skill. The blueprints covered basic items, though the quality was low. I could craft wooden walls, floors, workbenches, tables, chairs, beds, and storage. Crafting would grant experience and talent points, but I lacked the tools to even start. Without a workbench, I'd have to visit the village blacksmith first. As I prepared to leave, a dark blue shadow crashed into the study, colliding with the bookshelf. The old, rotten wood of the shelf couldn't withstand the impact. I caught the shelf, but dusty, ancient books rained down on me. "Griffin, what's the rush?" I asked, exasperated. I pulled the shadow from the debris, revealing blue feathers. It was a large, dark blue bird. The creature shook its head, coughing and sputtering. "Pa, so much dust. Filthy." The talking bird was a griffin. I had saved it 2 days ago, finding it in the snow with a broken wing. Despite being a griffin, it was cowardly and only bullied poultry. I suspected it had been beaten by villagers for stealing chickens. "Cough, boss, I've got important news." Griffin shook off the dust and flew onto the desk, puffing out its chest. "Oh, what news?" I was new here and lacked information. Griffin, being able to talk and sneak around, was my best scout. "Boss, we're late. The previous lord drained 3 years of taxes before fleeing. The villagers are penniless. There's nothing left to squeeze." 3 years? How dare he? "Wait, what kind of talk is that?" Griffin rasped. "Boss, I know it sounds bad, but didn't we come to this dump to make money? If the villagers are broke, how do we profit?" I was speechless. Griffin had a point. It was a strange transition, shifting from a taxpayer to a tax collector. Regardless, I never intended to exploit the villagers. Real wealth comes from those who actually have it. As for how to get rich, I had plenty of methods, but first, I had to stabilize the village as my foundation. Exile to the Northern Territory wasn't ideal, but it offered a benefit. I could develop in peace without attracting the greed of neighboring powers. In the sparsely populated north, small towns are like isolated islands in a vast sea, rarely interacting. Especially in this bitter winter, only the occasional merchant caravan passes through. Besides, what's worth wanting in this barren land? Just exiled criminals, endless ice, and elusive demons. The map-filling game begins. "Let's go, Griffin. We're going for a tour." "Boss, are we going to collect taxes?" "I told you." "Shut up." It was a clear, sunny day, perfect for surveying the territory. After getting lost previously, I realized I needed to map my own land. Getting lost on my own property was humiliating. First was Blackstone Castle, built directly into the mountain as if the rock had been hollowed out. It was once a barrier against orcs, but with no wars for a century and the southern walls serving as the primary defense, it had fallen into disrepair. The mountain slope was a sheer, impassable cliff. With almost no vegetation, it acted as a natural shield for the castle's rear and flanks. The structure reminded me of Minas Tirith from The Lord of the Rings. Though smaller, it was on par with the Witcher stronghold, Kaer Morhen. Minutes later, the afternoon sun cleared the mountain peaks, bathing the area in gold. The Blackstone walls were instantly illuminated. Blinded by the glare, I shielded my eyes. When I lowered my hand, the scene had transformed. Sunlight hit the metal ornaments on the towers, scattering silver light everywhere. The high tower looked as if it were cast from solid silver. Breathtaking, I sighed. It was a shame the angle was too low. I looked down at Griffin, who was flapping his wings. Sensing my gaze, Griffin shivered. "Boss, what's wrong?" "Griffin, can you carry a person? I've fed you enough meat. Time to contribute." It seemed he could. I grabbed Griffin's legs, and they lifted off the ground. Poor Griffin had to flap frantically to maintain balance, nearly gasping for air. Boss, I think you need to lose some weight." Griffin complained as the wind whipped by. He struggled to balance under my weight. "Hey, steady. We're going to hit the mountain," I teased as they grazed the cliffside. "That meat went straight to your rear. You're turning like a drunken raven. It's because you're heavy." "Oh, you want drifting? Like this?" Griffin, stung, decided to stop caring about flight paths. I clung to the claws as they scraped past ice pillars. "Left, left, left. Which way is left?" Griffin flipped upside down, leaving me choked by the airflow. Haha, humans and their directions. I only know up and down. They flew like a drunken bee, Griffin intentionally stalling every few flaps, finding the prank amusing. Scared, boss. Griffin preened. I might be many things, but my flying is top tier. Just as he spoke, a gust of wind sent them into a tailspin, and they crashed. Griffin's tail feathers slapped my face. System, rolling upon landing in snow/vegetation reduces fall damage. Griffin face-planted, while I rolled through the snow to cushion the impact, spitting out feathers. Griffin was buried in the snow, only his black claws twitching. Top tier? You're a total amateur. I stood up, brushed off the snow, and yanked Griffin out. Nice flying. As a reward, your dinner is halved. Griffin froze, feathers puffing out. That's exploitation. Abuse. I'll. Relax, I'm kidding. I'll give you extra. Minutes later, I reached the summit, taking in the entire territory. System, altitude 374.46 m, distance from ground 116.53 m. The summit was a small platform. It would make an excellent lookout point. A magnificent view unfolded, snow-covered peaks like sleeping dragons outlining the ice plains. Sunlight filtered through thin clouds, reflecting off the white expanse. Below, Blackstone Castle sat solemnly, its stone walls blending perfectly into the landscape. The surrounding mountains sheltered the village, where wooden and stone houses were dotted like patches on a white canvas. A river split the land, and rising smoke from chimneys brought a sense of life to the quiet, frozen scene. Beyond the village lay a vast snowfield with a mirror-like lake. Further out, the view blurred into a haze of snow. Hardy fir trees stood resiliently against the wind. Though barren, I saw immense potential. I breathed in the crisp, cold air. Initially, the drop in status had made me want to give up. But having lived a modern life, I couldn't settle. My talent tree gave me the confidence to stand my ground. As for the labels, magic less waste, bastard, family shame, I believed that in 10 years, the world would see me differently. This land was my home, my only home. Since I couldn't return to the south, I had to build my base. As they say, to get rich, start by logging and building roads. The village had only one narrow path. Trade relied mostly on the river. To develop this village in a strange world, I had to stimulate the economy. Relying solely on hunting and farming would keep them trapped in poverty forever. Human progress relies on two pillars, boiling water and throwing stones. Given the vast mineral wealth of the north, this desolate territory should be similar. System, shallow mithril veins and orichalcum detected, with deep-seated adamant. Mining is currently extremely difficult due to permafrost. Mithril? Orichalcum? Adamantine. I repeated the terms, stunned. Were these not mere fantasies from Western fiction? Orichalcum. Indestructible, hard but brittle. Mithril. Magic affine. Light as a feather, strong as dragon scales. Adamantine. Unbreakable, rare, and worth far more than gold. Data flooded my vision, explaining that these rare, high-performance metals were astronomically expensive. Their distribution is usually race-specific. Dwarves hold orichalcum, elves possess mithril, and humans control adamantine. I never imagined a tiny northern village would hold all three. Mining difficulty aside, having the resources was a massive win. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't just living on land with mines. I was living on a literal treasure trove. I shook my head to regain composure. Mining is too hard for now. Let's start with logging. Are those firs? I looked toward a distant forest of cold-resistant fir trees. System. Firs have high economic value for construction, resin extraction, paper, and medicine. Easy to process. Great. Construction materials were secured. I planned to work hard once winter ended. This place wasn't as barren as I thought. Boss, this city has no name. Why not name it? Griffin prompted. Griffin noticed my distraction and spoke up. Looking at the snowy expanse and fir forest, I decided. Let's call it Fir Territory. The creek outside will be Fir Creek. Griffin looked skeptical. Fir Territory? Fir Creek? Boss, that's a bit lazy. It's settled. Stop worrying about names and think about dinner. Dinner? Boss, I want meat. Lots of it. The castle was nearly out of food, unless you counted tooth-breaking black bread and salty jerky. I could tolerate overtime and client changes, but I wouldn't tolerate missing a meal. Wait, I forgot to feed Zero. Oh no, I ignored the panting griffin and slid down the mountain wall using my sword. The castle gates groaned with rusted, screeching hinges as I pushed them open. I'd forgotten to walk Zero. The ice-field wolf was like a husky. If its energy wasn't spent, it would tear the fragile castle apart. A husky tearing up a house was one thing. It was still livable. But Zero was different. If left unchecked, it could literally rip the roof off. The courtyard, hall, and corridors were intact. I breathed a sigh of relief. I couldn't afford any more damage to my already ruined home. I massaged my neck and fed Griffin some jerky. Griffin loved the salty, dried meat, devouring it happily. Griffin's tail brushed against a dusty wall niche, and the fastidious creature shook its feathers in disgust. "Boss, I checked everywhere. The dog is gone." "Don't call him that. Wolves are smart." Where could the massive icefield wolf be? It hadn't left the castle or gone hunting. I turned to the dark cellar. Why would it go in there? Hunting mice? I just fed it. The cellar smelled of rot and dampness, deepening my suspicion. A cold breeze swept through, rustling leaves. I spun around, but nothing was there. I was just spooked. Afternoon sunlight cast a murky yellow glow on the floor. The light crawled across the corridor until a silver-gray blur shattered the silence. Zero burst from the corner, the heavy thud of its paws making me jump. The giant icefield wolf sprinted toward its master in excitement. It forgot the snow rabbit in its mouth, splattering blood across the walls as it ran. I dove behind a stone pillar as Zero skidded past, losing balance and tumbling into the cellar, sliding until it hit the far wall. Thud! Zero's massive frame slammed into the wall, shaking the entire cellar. A falling candelabra hit Zero on the head, then bounced onto its tail. A woo! The howl echoed through the cellar as Zero rolled in pain. "Griffin, I agree with you now." I rubbed my forehead, wondering if I should keep the dumb dog before it demolished the castle. Should I make dog stew? Wait, the wall, what is this? I noticed spiderweb cracks spreading from where Zero hit the wall. Plaster peeled away, revealing glowing runes in the dim cellar. The blue runes pulsed rhythmically. System: ancient ruins detected. Unlock the mithril door to explore. Bricks fell away to reveal a massive, rune-etched mithril door. Poor Zero, having just recovered, got hit by falling debris again. If not for Zero's clumsy crash, I would never have found this secret passage. But how to open it? The mithril door was too thick and sturdy for me to break. Casting a door out of solid mithril? The contents behind it must be worth a fortune. I considered digging around it, but I realized the door was one side of a mithril cube. Digging was useless. It was a giant safe. I saw no keyhole, only 5 concentric rings. The rings were engraved with runes and could be rotated. The rings had 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64 runes respectively. I needed the right combination, but I couldn't read them. Damn it, I hated puzzles. At least the golden dragon claw existed for other quests. "Boss, should we try every combination?" Griffin asked, eyes gleaming. If it was full of gold dragons, they'd be rich for lifetimes. "Try every one. Don't be ridiculous." The number of combinations was astronomical. I needed to be pragmatic. My keen insight was good for clues, not for cracking codes. This place hasn't been cleaned in centuries. Let's go back to Leah. This door isn't going anywhere. I wrinkled my nose in disgust, waving away the foul, rotting stench lingering in the cellar. "Give it up, Griffin. You're just wasting time." I sighed and pulled Griffin away from the mithril door. "Zero, you too. Let's go. We've been here long enough." Zero, clutching the snow rabbit, followed me toward the exit, looking dejected. As it turned, the rabbit's blood accidentally splattered onto the mithril door's dial. The blood seeped into the crevices, unnoticed by the departing me. Once they left, the dial spun on its own, displaying a series of obscure runes before resetting. I knocked on Leah's door. "Leah, may I come in?" "Lord, please, enter." I found Leah reading by the window, a lock of silver hair resting gracefully on the page. Afternoon sunlight bathed her face, making her delicate elf ears appear translucent. Leah seemed to relish the warmth, which eased the pain of her seed of frost, a rare luxury for her. "Am I interrupting?" I asked, reluctant to break the peaceful moment. Leah smiled to hide her nerves. "Not at all, Lord. How can I help you?" "I'm not that formal, Leah. Just call me Crane." "But, fine. Do as you please. I waved it off. Want to come with me? We're low on food. I'm heading to the village to buy supplies. I'd love to. Then get ready. We're leaving. There was little to prepare. Just grab the money and a shopping list. Leah, however, made sure to pull her cloak tight, hiding her silver hair. With her hood obscuring her face, she followed me closely, carefully avoiding the villagers and livestock. Despite the peaceful surroundings, she couldn't touch anything. Her magic power could only suppress the seed of frost within a 1-meter radius. Beyond that, anything living, except me, would be frozen by the frost. The castle was only a few hundred meters from the village. I chuckled at the memory of getting lost in the blizzard the night before. The afternoon sun pierced the clouds, bringing a touch of vitality to the quiet Northern Territory village. The villagers had their ways of enduring the harsh northern winter. Recent snow was deep, making walking difficult and prone to trapping one's feet. Leah, however, moved with such lightness that she left no footprints on the snow. I looked back at my own deep, clumsy tracks and sighed at the difference in their racial talents. I couldn't replicate that grace. As we neared the village, the familiar sounds of life were far more comforting than the lonely castle. The houses were built of logs, topped with thick thatch to ward off the biting northern wind. Children played in the streets, and villagers carried game and fish, promising a hearty dinner. Poultry pecked at the ground, a goose leaving distinct webbed prints in the snow as it waddled by. Leah smiled at the harmonious scene, having never observed the world with such a relaxed heart. She mused on how strange it was that, without this accident, she would never have crossed paths with this village. Leah, what do you think of this place? I asked softly, gesturing to the busy villagers. It's wonderful, so harmonious and slow-paced. I wish it could stay this way forever. Her eyes shone with longing. This simple, peaceful life was her greatest dream. It will stay this way, and it will only get better. I promise. Deep winter meant little farm work, so villagers focused on weaving and hunting, leaving the paths quiet. The village square, usually a gathering spot, was mostly empty save for a few merchants. Villagers had sufficient meat, vegetables, and grain, thanks to preparations made since autumn. Dehydrated grains, beans, and cured meats were staples that lasted easily through the winter. However, they still relied on traveling merchants for salt and cloth. That's too high, Harvest. Keep the pelt or try selling it to Trav. I can't pay more. I looked over to see Butcher, the village butcher, haggling with a hunter over a dead wild boar. The boar was heavy, killed by a single, precise arrow to the eye. Butcher sounded frustrated, clearly struggling to reach an agreement. Fine. I'm heading to the fir forest tonight, and big boars are rare. 16 silver wolf coins, deal? Harvest, eager to finish his preparations for the night hunt, gave his final offer. Ugh, fine. I'll take the loss. After the payment, the two exchanged a few words before Butcher began processing the boar. As the village's only butcher, Butcher worked with practiced ease, his blade dancing through the boar to carve it into uniform portions. The meat was exceptionally fresh, its healthy pink hue confirming it had been harvested that very morning. Recalling how much Leah enjoyed roasted rabbit, I realized elves in this world clearly didn't shy away from meat. I decided to buy in bulk. The cold weather would preserve it, and I could have Leah freeze the rest. Having an ice element warlock around was incredibly convenient. Noticing me watching him, Butcher paused his work to call out, "Fresh boar meat, sir? Only 15 copper eagles a pound." Note: the currency exchange in the Northern Territory is 1 gold dragon equals 100 silver wolves equals 10,000 copper eagles. 15 copper eagles? That's steep. How about 12 if I buy 10 pounds? I sighed. My funds were dangerously low. I needed to be frugal to survive the winter, or finally crack the code to that mithril door. As a lord, I shouldn't have to worry about finances. The tax revenue alone should cover my lifetime expenses. However, I was a newcomer, and the previous lord had already fled after pre-collecting taxes. Lacking experience and local standing, I feared that immediate taxation would spark public unrest. Beyond basic survival, I needed income. I considered renting out vacant castle rooms, but dismissed a 12 copper eagle rate as far too low. Butcher was stunned by the counteroffer, then paused. Wait, are you the man from the tavern last night? What about it? I was confused. I was just trying to buy meat. not discuss my tavern visit. I was there too. If you hadn't defeated those monsters, we wouldn't have survived. Take the meat for free. Butcher's booming voice drew a crowd of fellow tavern-goers to his stall. No need for charity, I insisted. Just give me a fair discount. I waved off the villagers, though I found their gratitude touching. The hardy northern folk held heroes in high regard and insisted on offering tokens of appreciation. Despite being bled dry by the previous lord, the villagers scraped together what they could, refusing to let me leave empty-handed. My protests were ignored as they piled gifts into my arms, eventually forcing me to use a handcart to haul the bounty. With grain, vegetables, meat, and even a barrel of ale from the tavern keeper, Leah and I were set for weeks. Look, Leah, the villagers are so kind. My joy faded when I noticed Leah hanging her head, unable to meet the cheering villagers' eyes. Leah, are you unwell? I'm sorry. Last night, because of me, the black armor came. Her voice broke into sobs, leaving her looking utterly helpless amidst the celebration. She was still consumed by guilt over the previous night. I felt a surge of frustration. She was a victim, not the culprit. Leah, you couldn't control those black armor. You did nothing wrong. I cupped her face gently. If you can't forgive yourself, then stay by my side and help me protect this place, all right? Tears welled in Leah's eyes as she buried her face in my chest, weeping silently. I patted her back, offering the steady support she desperately needed. No one had ever cared for Leah's feelings or spoken to her with such kindness before. Branded as a harbinger of disaster, she had grown accustomed to being blamed for every misfortune, eventually believing it herself. My words were a revelation, a form of salvation she never expected. I could offer comfort, but the path to self-acceptance was hers alone to walk. As I pushed the cart toward the castle, a hidden crisis loomed over the peaceful village. After I left, a man pulled his hat low and hurried out of the village. Once clear of prying eyes, he removed his hood. Beneath it were black wolf ears. He licked his lips, his predatory eyes gleaming. No guards. Tonight will be a bountiful harvest. Night fell, and the northern wind bit like a blade. The winter night was long and freezing. With supplies depleted by the recent blizzard, the need for resources was desperate. A pack of wolf-orc bandits lurked in the darkness, their eyes fixed on the village's faint lights, smelling blood. Unlike the hulking green-skinned variety, these orcs resembled humans, save for their wolf ears and tails. Look at those humans, warm and unaware of their doom. One orc hissed, craving the taste of warm blood. His ears twitched in the cold, his body trembling with sadistic anticipation. His companion laughed, baring sharp teeth. A beautiful night. Food, gold, and women. He hummed, already imagining the carnage. Forget the women, I want their coin. With money, you can buy anything. A third orc licked his curved blade, his pupils dilating at the scent of blood. There's a silver-haired elf girl in the village. I smelled her scent from a mile away. A real prize, better than any we've had before. Another laughed lewdly, eager to see her silver hair dragged through the snow. A comrade spat. You want to touch her? Not afraid of the curse. To hell with the curse. Let's enjoy ourselves. The muscular leader waved them down. Enough. Get moving. Whoever falls behind gets skinned for a scarf. The leader kept his focus on the objective while his subordinates reveled in the coming slaughter. At his command, the bandits mounted their horses and charged toward fur territory. Their sturdy, thick-maned horses were well adapted to the northern cold, their eyes glowing with wild ferocity. The horses accelerated, hooves kicking up snow as the bandits' maniacal laughter echoed. Nearly 100 riders surged forward like arrows aimed at the defenseless village. The villagers slept soundly, unaware of the impending disaster. The winter night was destined to be stained with blood as the bandits approached, torches raised, their grins frozen in the cold. Warning! A group of orc bandits is approaching from the west. High speed. Targets to eliminate. 76. I, studying blueprints in my study, was jolted by the system alert. Looking out the window, I saw distant torches and heard the frantic thundering of hooves. Quick, Griffin. Zero, follow me. I rushed to reach the village. Griffin, exhausted from the day, grabbed me and glided toward the village. Zero, jolted from sleep, leaped over the castle wall to keep pace. Despite its massive size, the ice-field wolf moved with incredible agility. The distance between the castle and the village remained a challenge. The bandits had already breached the flimsy fence and begun their looting. They tossed grain sacks onto their horses, indifferent to the waste. Without food, the villagers wouldn't survive the winter. Those who resisted were simply cut down. Their greedy, cruel laughter filled the night. With most able-bodied men out hunting with harvests, the remaining villagers were helpless against the armed bandits. Blood stained the white snow as the bandits prioritized plunder over all else. The survival of the villagers meant nothing to them. The village was merely prey on a platter. As long as they avoided Blackstone Castle, the villagers were easy pickings. Fires spread as the bandits rampaged, accompanied by screams and cries. They showed no mercy, trampling anyone in their path. The village was a scene of chaos and fire. Seeing the peaceful village ruined, my fury boiled over. Griffin dropped me into the center of the fray. I charged the nearest group, who were dragging a young mother and her children from their home. The husband lay motionless, a deep, bone-reaching wound in his back. A child bit the bandit's hand, breaking free. The child scrambled to hide against a wall, covered in mud and snow. The wounded bandit, mocked by his peers, raised his blade in a rage to strike the child. The blade glinted in the firelight. The child had nowhere to run. Just as the blade descended, my sword flashed through the firelight. I parried the strike perfectly, then pivoted to slash the bandit's throat with lethal precision. Unlike the black armor, the sensation of bone snapping beneath my blade felt disturbingly viscous. Bandit killed, EXP plus 13, extermination 176th. Despite this being my first kill, I felt no hesitation. My modern rationality was being stripped away by this hellish scene, or perhaps my fused memories had simply adapted me to this world's brutality. Such carnage was common here. Human life was cheap. I didn't notice my pupils turning a violent, blood-red hue as I claimed my first life. Realizing the threat, the orc bandits surrounded me, attempting to overwhelm me with numbers. My blade moved without mercy, claiming a life with every swing. I finished off every fallen foe until the notification chimed. Bandit killed, EXP plus 13, streak plus 5. Bandit killed, EXP plus 13, streak plus 7. Bandit killed, EXP plus 13, streak plus 9. Extermination, 12 of 76. Ignoring the EXP, I sought only to vent my violence. My blade chipped and dulled from hacking through bone and flesh. I discarded the ruined sword and began smashing skulls with my bare fists. My physique, akin to a precision killing machine, displayed peak speed and strength. Even surrounded by 3 bandits, my movements remained lethal. I dodged a bandit's blade with a simple sidestep. However, I failed to notice an arrow piercing my right shoulder. I ripped the arrow out and hurled it back, piercing the archer's eye and pinning him to the wall. The momentum of a charging horse is terrifying, but a missed strike leaves the rider vulnerable. Injured, I punched the horse's belly, sending both beast and rider flying like a catapult launch. I then delivered an uppercut to a bandit's jaw. A sickening crunch echoed as the bandit's neck snapped, sending him reeling backward. I followed with a precise straight punch to another bandit's nose. The frontal bone shattered instantly. My fists were like hammers, striking only vital points. I ensured every kill with a finishing elbow strike to the neck. Zero, the massive icefield wolf, joined the fray. It pounced on riders, dragging them down to tear out their throats. The air grew thick with the scent of blood. I, fueled by adrenaline, fought with wild, relentless efficiency. My shoulder wound hindered me, but I activated Wind of Recovery, which restored health at the cost of stamina. The wound healed instantly, though my eyes remained devoid of emotion. My fists were caked in blood and gore, dripping onto the ground. Extermination, 47 of 76. Terrified, the remaining orcs turned to flee, abandoning their loot. Others tried to take villagers hostage to force a standoff. I couldn't stop dozens of fleeing bandits or protect the villagers alone. Stay back. Move and they die. Cornered bandits held blades to a villager's throat, their limbs trembling. Nearby fires threatened to consume the entire fur territory. Without their home, the villagers wouldn't survive the Northern Territory's cold. Worse, I heard two bowstrings snap behind me. I had no time to dodge. A cold chant echoed through the night. Wither. Leah's spell manifested as a massive, wide-area frost field, enveloping the battlefield. The bandits were frozen mid-motion, time seemingly standing still. Their lives withered away in an instant. Miraculously, the villagers and horses remained untouched. Only the bandits were encased in ice. The frozen statues toppled, shattering into bloody fragments. The arrows aimed at me were encased in ice and fell harmlessly. It was a narrow escape. They had been inches from my throat. My body was strong, but not enough to withstand an arrow to the neck. Is it over? I stood dazed amidst the carnage and smoldering ruins. Extermination, 76 of 76. The red glow in my eyes faded as I struggled to process the battle. Blood dripped from my forehead, mingling with the gore on my clothes. Zero approached me, finally moving with caution. Thanks for tonight, Zero. Zero licked the blood from my wounds, enjoying my touch. Exhaustion hit me hard. As I prepared to rest, a dark blue figure appeared. Griffin? Sensing my fading consciousness, Griffin struck me with a wing and shouted, "Boss, wake up. The elf is in trouble." What? The black armor castle was ancient, its corridors winding and moss-covered. Flickering candles cast long, eerie shadows against the cold stone. I sprinted toward Leah's room, still covered in blood. Leah? I pounded on the door, but it was sealed by a layer of frost. I couldn't force it open. Panic surged. I hammered harder, receiving no reply. Leah. I knew she wouldn't ignore me. Something was terribly wrong. I kicked the door, shattering the wood and ice. Leah lay on the bed, her silver hair dusted with frost. Her breathing was shallow, her face deathly pale. The room was freezing, the fireplace dead, and frost was spreading across her skin. Leah. I rushed to her side, brushing the frost from her face. Wake up. Can you hear me? Leah's condition worsened because her excessive magic consumption, combined with her already depleted reserves, caused the seed of frost to break free and consume her. A cold notification appeared before me. How did this happen? The system explained that to protect the villagers, she had overextended her magic to locate targets, leading to total depletion. Crane, is that you? Leah's eyelids fluttered as she struggled to focus her blurry vision on me. Too weak to rise, she gasped. Crane. I. Her voice was a faint whisper, followed by a fit of coughing that I barely managed to hear. I'm here. Don't speak, just rest. I clasped her hand tightly, trying to offer warmth and comfort. Crane, I thought I could hold on. I'm glad you're safe. Leah tried to smile, but she lacked the strength. Don't talk nonsense, you'll be fine. I cut her off, refusing to let her give up. I had brought her here. I had to ensure her survival. I panicked. I had no medical knowledge and zero understanding of magic to treat her depletion. Crane, thank you. But if this continues, you will also. Every word cost her precious energy. The frost was deep in her bones. Her blood was turning to ice. She knew her time was short. She hoped to leave quietly, without burdening me or the village she cherished. This final day had been the happiest she'd known in months. Whether others saw her as a curse didn't matter. My trust had warmed her frozen heart. She was grateful to the man who had saved her, but she had nothing left to repay him. She had survived only one extra night. She was truly a harbinger of disaster. Perhaps death was her best path to stop hurting others. At least she had saved the villagers. I'm sorry. Crane, I can't see you anymore. As she closed her eyes, I pulled her into a tight embrace, my heart aching as her vitality faded. So this is what an embrace feels like. It's so warm. Dying in my arms felt like a final, greedy wish she dared not ask for. Her consciousness drifted to a vision of a frozen altar and a throne with an ice coffin. This time, she was inside the coffin. She watched helplessly as black-armored soldiers slaughtered the priests around her, their blood staining the ice. Eternal winter is not the end, but a cycle. When the stars align, frost shall freeze the oath breakers. I felt Leah turning into a block of ice in my arms. I couldn't let go, yet she was fading fast. I cursed my own arrogance. I couldn't even protect the person right beside me. I recalled the cave. The seed of frost was magic. If it was magic, my magic immunity should work. I had to try. I slashed my palm with a dagger, clenching my fist. I let my hot blood drip into Leah's lips. It was a desperate gamble. Thanks to my vigorous blood and wind of recovery, my wounds healed rapidly. I cut my hand again and again, deeper each time. My wounds healed repeatedly until I felt no more pain. I could only wait for a miracle. Hold on, Leah. You'll be okay. I gripped her cold hand, praying. Suddenly, her pulse flickered. My heart raced. Then a second beat, a third, a fourth. The rhythm quickened. Her breathing stabilized, and the frost began to recede. I exhaled. My gamble had paid off. Cough, cough. Leah choked on the blood, gasping for air. Her complexion regained a hint of color. Even though she had accepted death, the warmth of survival was overwhelming. Leah, how do you feel? I feel much better. She touched her face, wondering if she was dreaming. Crane, are you here? I am. She noticed the blood on my palm. You're bleeding. It's nothing. I hid my hand, relieved. Are you truly all right? The room's chill was fading. The frost was melting. The curse was being suppressed. I feel fine, but I can't sense my magic or the seed of frost anymore. My magic immunity had worked too well, sealing both the curse and her magic. Once she recovered, she could suppress the seed herself. Rest now. I'll get water. Wait, stay a while longer, she whispered, blushing. I will. The night was long. Stripped of her status as an elf warlock, Leah was just a girl craving warmth. She fell into a satisfied sleep, a tear of happiness on her cheek. The exhaustion of magic depletion lingered, but the curse was held at bay. I kept watch by her bedside, the candlelight flickering against the stone walls. I was drained from the blood loss, but I refused to sleep until I was certain she was safe. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight touched Blackstone Castle, illuminating Leah's silver hair with a gentle glow. Leah's breathing steadied, and a hint of color returned to her face. I gripped her hand, feeling her warmth revive. Knowing the worst had passed, I whispered, Leah, are you all right? I sat by the bed, anxiously checking her forehead for signs of discomfort. Hours had passed, and I dreaded a relapse of the seed of frost. I couldn't bear that feeling of helplessness again. I'm fine, Crane. Thank you for worrying. Leah's voice was weak but comforting as she reached out to hold my hand. Her hand was small and cold, yet it brought me immense peace. Seeing my tension, Leah smiled. Being cared for like this felt wonderful. She understood my worry, but having me by her side filled her with unprecedented contentment. Really, I'm fine, Crane, she insisted. I just need more rest. The villagers need you more than I do. Go. I'll be here when you return. Returning to the battlefield, I saw only devastation. The bandits were dead, but the villagers were lost forever. The night was filled with the cries of parents who lost children and children who lost parents. The longest night in the Northern Territory. I could hardly believe the reality of the carnage. Just yesterday, I had looked down at a peaceful village, hoping for its future prosperity. Now, those dreams were shattered like broken glass. Disaster strikes without warning, leaving only a lifetime of regret. If only I had arrived sooner, I might have saved more, but there were no ifs. As dawn broke, the village air was thick with the stench of blood and mud. I walked through the cold, my pace slowing as the villagers' wails filled my ears. Over 20 villagers lay dead, callously abandoned on the frozen ground. They had fought to their last breath with whatever tools or weapons they could find. The loss of both adults and children left the survivors burning with hatred. This cannot stand. I clenched my fists so hard my nails pierced my palms. They had won, but what if they hadn't? Dignity lies in the sword, and truth lies within the range of a cannon. These were merely low-level bandits. Without armed protection, a prosperous territory is just easy prey. The villagers, and the fur territory needed an iron-blooded army. A sudden, deafening tolling of the bell tower shattered the silence. I rang the heavy, rusted bell to summon the survivors. The bell, long and used, echoed across the village. Villagers gathered in the square, their eyes burning with hatred amidst the lingering scent of blood. I stood on the tower and announced, I am Kyle Crane, your new lord. You may not know my name, but you have seen this crest. I held up my hand, displaying the family crest. It's him. I saw him kill those bandits with his bare hands. Impossible. The previous lords were just vampires hiding in Blackstone Castle. never caring for us. It's true. I saw him smash those black armor thugs at the tavern. He saved my family last night. It really is him. The crowd buzzed with restless excitement. Last night, we lost families and friends to senseless violence. Winter is long and cold. We survived this time, but how will we face the next? My words cut deep into their hearts. War never ends, I continued. Your hatred is justified, and it is our reason to fight. We must prepare. I will build an army to defend this village, and I will teach you everything I know. I looked them in the eye, promising, I cannot guarantee everything, but I will live and die with this territory. Silence fell over the square after my speech. The wind stilled, and the falling snow seemed to absorb every sound. The villagers stood in tense, contemplative silence. Was no one going to step forward? Would they just wait to be slaughtered again? Just as I feared my efforts were in vain, a roar erupted. I'm in. Harvest, the hunter, pushed through the crowd. His heavy boots crunched on the bloody ice, and bare fur shed from his coat as he moved. A rugged man and the village's best hunter, I had seen him at butcher's shop before. His face was smeared with soot, his eyes red-rimmed, smelling of pine resin and blood. Harvest had lost his only child while he was out hunting bears. He returned from his hunt only to find his family dead and his home ruined. His hunting knife dripped with melted snow, and his grip on the handle was white-knuckled. Veins bulged on his hand, ready to burst. The tragedy had aged him overnight. I will join. His voice was raspy and firm, his wristband digging deep into his skin. His courage ignited the others. Dozens more raised their hands, determined to fight rather than lose everything. I nodded, satisfied by their resolve. Without the courage to struggle against strong foes, an army would be meaningless. They might not be elite warriors, but their will to protect their home made them fearless. One more thing, I said, signaling for quiet. A baby's cry was quickly muffled by its mother. The villagers waited for my next words. We survived last night thanks to her. I gestured for Leah to step forward, offering her an encouraging nod. Leah remained cloaked, her silver hair hidden beneath her hood as when we first met. Leah hesitated, fearing that revealing her true self would invite the villagers' hatred and curses. She was accustomed to such treatment, having endured it for a long time. However, she worried that her presence would cause me trouble or resentment among my people. She was already grateful that I had taken her in, never daring to dream of walking openly in public. She froze the bandits to save us and extinguished the fires that threatened our homes, I announced, signaling Leah to remove her hood. Without her, our victory would have come at a much higher price. I knew how much she feared the stigma of her silver hair, which she usually kept hidden, but I refused to let her hide forever. I wanted her to walk freely in my territory. Recalling my initial promise, Leah looked at my hopeful eyes and felt emboldened by my trust. Don't worry, I'm here, I reassured her. As my voice reached her, I gently took her left hand in mine. The warmth of my touch calmed her racing heart. With my support, her hesitation vanished, and she slowly lowered her hood, revealing her long silver hair. In the morning light, her hair shimmered like pure winter snow. As she moved, her hair flowed like moonlight, revealing an ethereal beauty. Her pointed ears, the mark of her elf heritage, became visible, causing the villagers to gasp in unison. A carpenter in the back stumbled, knocking over a bucket, while a woman holding her baby hesitated before uncovering the child's eyes. Their reaction was predictable. Though silver hair was considered an omen of disaster, Leah appeared elegant and noble. She was a light in their darkness, and no one spoke out, as they all remembered the previous night. Without her, the fire would have consumed everything, and the bandits would have caused further ruin. Leah squeezed my hand and lowered her head, bracing herself for the expected insults. She feared they would blame her for the raid, as she was often seen as an embodiment of misfortune. Yet, the expected outcry never came. There were murmurs, but no curses. I knew it. It's her fault the bandits attacked, a drunken man shouted. He had been passed out during the raid and missed the events entirely. A farm woman nearby struck him with a frozen fish, shouting, "You heartless fool! Where were you when the bandits came? You were dead drunk. If she hadn't put out the fire, we would have burned to death." As similar arguments broke out, the dissent quickly faded. Suddenly, a single clap echoed, followed by a wave of applause that swept through the crowd. Not everyone was convinced, of course. Though some held on to old prejudices, their voices were drowned out by the thunderous applause. The undeniable fact remained. She had saved the village. Leah looked up in disbelief, a tear sliding down her cheek as she realized the reality of the moment. In that instant, her heart was filled with nothing but profound gratitude. Northerners are simple and straightforward. Rumors hold little sway here, as they trust only what they see with their own eyes. Since the silver-haired elf saved them and protected the village, it was only natural for them to show their gratitude and acceptance. I had Griffin escort Leah to rest, as she hadn't fully recovered. Though, with her inner turmoil eased, she should be able to find peace. After the assembly, 27 young men remained, forming the village's first militia. This number was the calculated limit. Any more would cripple the village's daily production. I couldn't blindly expand the army. Logistics alone were already giving me a massive headache. Unlike temporary militia raised for specific conflicts, I aimed to build a standing army. A standing army requires full-time service, so I planned to provide regular food and coin subsidies to ensure the villagers had no worries. However, maintaining a standing army is incredibly expensive. By kingdom law, every able-bodied male owes 40 days of unpaid service to their lord annually. Beyond that, the lord must pay wages. Infantry earn 20 copper eagles daily, archers 50, and knights with battle chi can demand 2 to 5 silver wolves. As for warlocks, they are exclusively the domain of noble-blooded lords. Excluding myself and Leah, these 27 men, 7 archers and 20 infantry, would cost 240,000 copper eagles or 24 gold dragons annually. A baron's annual profit is rarely over 100 gold dragons. Between training facilities, equipment, and rations, I sighed as my family's treasury dwindled. With only 28 gold dragons and 37 silver wolves left, my current funds wouldn't last a year. Yet, I had no choice. Development requires protection. Stockpile grain and weapons. I reasoned. It was a crude but necessary philosophy. If I didn't spend on defense, I'd eventually pay in defeat, and the cost of losing was death, while the winner takes all. This was my first time in a leadership role, formerly a nameless office worker. I felt a surge of excitement at finally having subordinates. Knowing I lacked the talent to train soldiers myself, I realized I needed a captain to assist with management. These villagers were currently nothing more than raw recruits, not yet a true militia. Most were simple farmers who had never touched a weapon, making them difficult to integrate into a military unit. Fortunately, the group included skilled hunters, most notably Harvest, who had been the first to answer the call. Harvest was a capable hunter with deep forest knowledge and legendary marksmanship. Despite losing his only child in the attack, he remained stoic and resilient. Aside from Leah, the god-tier warlock, Harvest was the only person of real value available to me. Harvest, I called out to the line of villagers. I am here, my lord, Harvest replied. Harvest stepped forward, his muscular frame covered in scars that hinted at a life of hardship. I want you to be captain and train the archers. I've heard of your skill. Can you demonstrate? I wouldn't boast, but I shall try. As Harvest adjusted his bowstring, his fingers brushed a crude sun carving on his quiver, a mark his 7-year-old son had made. The wind seemed to fade, replaced by the phantom sound of a child's laughter. Father, when I grow up, I'll be a better archer than you. He closed his eyes, steadying his trembling hands. When he opened them, he drew his bow and released the arrow in one fluid motion. In a heartbeat, the arrow struck a single leaf on a withered branch 100 paces away. Harvest fired a second arrow, perfectly splitting a falling leaf midair just as his first arrow severed the branch. The crowd cheered at his precision, and I nodded in approval. Harvest, however, remained silent and stowed his bow. If I had been there, Harvest mused. I interrupted. Harvest, select 6 recruits for archery training. Can you do it? As you command, my lord. I turned to the villagers. First, we must lay those lost last night to rest. I and the villagers dug a large pit on the village outskirts. The victims were placed inside, eyes closed in eternal peace. The only sound was the rhythmic thud of shovels against the earth. I sensed their suppressed grief and rage. They were burying friends and family lost in a single night. The bandits were dead, but the loss remained. The living had to carry on. As the bodies were covered, I shoveled snow-mixed soil into the pit. Harvest paused, confused. "My lord, forgive me, but what are you doing?" I replied, "Burying the dead. Is there a problem?" I noticed the villagers had stopped, staring at me. Had I missed a ritual? Was it the lack of coffins, or a priest? "No offense, my lord. You must be from the interior. You don't know northern customs." Harvest lowered his head. "In the north, we only use cremation." "Why?" I asked. I had expected traditional burial, complete with coffins and headstones. A middle-aged man, voice trembling with grief and fear, spoke up. "Because of the demon legends." The man had just kissed his dead wife and child goodbye. He threw a torch into the pit, his tear-filled eyes reflecting the rising flames. "Legends say the dead who aren't put to rest rise as ghouls, mindless monsters that devour the living. We cremate them to ensure they truly rest." The villagers threw their torches, and fire consumed the pit. I sighed in relief, thinking it was just a scary myth. Note: this is not a legend. What? A cold countdown appeared before my eyes. Ghoul invasion in 64 days, 15 hours. After the villagers' funeral, they dealt with the bandits. The bandits were unworthy of ceremony. They were piled up and burned. Harvest selected 6 strong men for archery. Most were former hunters with good aim. The rest were sturdy laborers. Contrary to fantasy, archery requires immense strength to draw a heavy bow. Even a seasoned hunter like Harvest would tire after repeated shots. I tossed spears to the recruits. Learning to handle the weight was their first hurdle. Swordplay was too costly and slow to teach these novices. Given their lack of battle chi, becoming spearmen was the most practical choice. I, relying on physical prowess rather than magic or battle chi, had limited teaching methods. It was a remote northern village, not a single knight with battle chi to be found. Training began with endurance running and basic combat drills. I was strict. I knew any slack in training would be paid for with blood on the battlefield. I demonstrated every thrust until every soldier mastered the technique. Progress, however, was slower than expected. Fitness levels varied, and many struggled with the intensity. Watch your footwork. Put your back into it. Imagine your enemy. I corrected them, frustrated. After the session, I asked Harvest about the poor results. "My lord, they are just villagers. Their bodies aren't built for this intensity." Harvest looked sympathetic. "They aren't professional soldiers. They need time." I nodded reluctantly. They were novices handling weapons for the first time. But bandits wouldn't care about their lack of experience. "I understand, Harvest. But we don't have time. We must accelerate. I don't want to see another tragedy this winter." I didn't mention the ghouls arriving in 2 months. Fleeing was impossible. The elderly and children wouldn't survive the 100-kilometer trek to the nearest city. Staying to fortify Blackstone Castle was the only viable strategy. I pushed them hard, emphasizing discipline and obedience alongside physical training. I enforced strict military etiquette. Without it, nothing else mattered. Following the recent attack, I organized nightly patrols. These night watchmen worked in pairs until dawn. They were rewarded with 7 copper eagles and a bowl of hot mutton soup. I also ordered the construction of 2 7-meter-tall watchtowers for early warning. Days of intense training led to visible improvements in stamina. As they adapted, I raised the training standards. The soldiers began to coordinate effectively in mock combat. They might not be elite, but their resolve to defend their home was unquestionable. From farmers to warriors, they were evolving. I planned to use wild game hunts as their final assessment. This would provide food, bloodletting experience, and team building in a controlled, dangerous environment. Meanwhile, repairs and defensive fortifications continued across the village. I organized soldiers to reinforce walls and roofs for the harsh winter, personally funding repairs for homes damaged by the recent fire. While repairs continue, I employ displaced villagers for cleaning and chores to provide them shelter. Blacksmith Harvest and his apprentices are working overtime. I recently unlocked the Flash of Inspiration talent through leveling. This talent grants a chance to obtain advanced blueprints upon completing a standard one. After crafting many longbows, I unexpectedly gained blueprints for recurved bows and crossbows. Recurved bows feature outward curving limbs, differing from traditional bows. Despite lacking modern composite materials, their performance remains superior. Harvest tested a finished recurve bow and noted a significant range increase over traditional straight-limbed bows. Harvest set the bow down, catching his breath to steady his racing heart. The bow's penetration was astounding, piercing the bullseye and vastly extending his effective range. However, the recurve bow is harder to master. Even a veteran hunter needs time to adapt, making training for novices difficult. With few skilled archers in the village, training a competent unit is a long-term investment. Such training usually takes years, but time is a luxury they lack. Harvest praised the weapon as a divine artifact, marveling at his lord's ingenuity. Yet, he felt something was still missing. "My lord, the recurve bow is powerful but difficult to control. Is there something more accessible?" "Indeed, Harvest. I have other designs I haven't shown yet. While composite bows are currently impossible, crossbows are perfect for solving the training time dilemma. A crossbow consists of a stock, bow, string, and trigger mechanism. I had Harvest forging these specific triggers overnight. Though slower to reload, the crossbow offers superior range, accuracy, and lethality. Crucially, it requires minimal skill. A raw recruit can quickly learn to neutralize a veteran or even a battle-chi-wielding knight with special bolts. I am certain such technology is unprecedented in this era of primitive metallurgy. Relying too heavily on magic is a weakness. I am ready to introduce a dimensional strike of technology to this world." Clang. Whoosh. The sounds of hammers and bellows echo from the village smithy. The smithy is a sturdy stone and wood structure with a thatched roof and a smoking chimney. Inside, the furnace glows red, illuminating walls blackened by years of soot. The air is thick with the scent of rust, charcoal, and sweat. The furnace heat is intense, hitting me like a wave at the entrance. A polished anvil sits beside the furnace, gleaming with metallic luster. Tools are meticulously organized on racks. I browse the tools, considering what I might borrow for my own needs. Raw, ore, and charcoal occupy the corners, while the workbench holds farm tools and the new crossbow mechanisms. Despite the freezing weather, Harvest and his apprentices work shirtless, drenched in sweat. Known as Big Iron Teacher, Harvest is the village's sole professional blacksmith. He responds to the nickname with a smile. Harvest is a burly man with thick arms, a scarred forehead, and a rugged, bearded face. His skin is darkened by the furnace, and his hands are calloused yet dexterous. I have been practicing crafting with low-level blueprints lately. Failures still grant experience, albeit less than successes. My proudest creation is the manual blower installed in the forge. It increases furnace temperatures, allowing for higher quality iron by removing more impurities. Harvest confirmed that the blowers significantly improved the quality of their iron. This minor modification yielded immediate results. I plan to expand the smithy and eventually use the Fir Creek's water power to boost efficiency. An apprentice pulled a glowing iron block from the furnace. Harvest skillfully hammered it to remove impurities and shape the crossbow frame. Precision is vital for the crossbow's stability and durability. I demand perfection, providing blueprints with extremely tight tolerances. This is a massive challenge for a village smith accustomed only to farm tools. Yet, Harvest produced perfect results within 5 days, meeting every requirement. I expected it to take weeks. Harvest even repaired my sword in the meantime. Big Iron Teacher is truly valuable. I plan to have him attempt seamless steel pipes once technology advances. Focus on precision over speed, I instructed, inspecting the finished crossbows. Due to the era's limitations, the iron remains high in impurities and low in hardness. It is functional but lacks durability and is prone to rust. Without higher-level knowledge or better furnaces, they are limited to spongy pig iron. This iron blank requires constant hammering to remove impurities, explaining the endless noise. Rest assured, my lord, Harvest promised, his hammer striking with rhythmic, sparking force. Reliable and steady, Harvest reported. 6 crossbows are finished and ready for testing. 6 units, I was satisfied. I could equip the first batch this afternoon. Harvest, do you need more materials or manpower? The smithy is a priority for my development. To be honest, we have enough hands, but our iron ore reserves are depleting rapidly. Harvest smiled wryly. noting that previous demand was only for minor repairs. At this rate, we have 4 days of ore left. I frowned. I'll handle it. They currently source ore from a natural mine at the mountain's base. The ore is low-grade and scarce, and the accessible deposits are nearly exhausted. This amount of iron is barely enough for farm tools, let alone industrial production. The furnace would go cold before it even started. I need to be realistic. With orichalcum, mithril, and adamantine already beneath the Northern Territory, I can't expect to find gold, silver, and iron in the same spot. Coal is the missing piece. Without it, I cannot jumpstart my industrialization plans. I know these preparations are vital for the village's survival. I personally inspect every task daily, tracking progress to ensure everything stays on schedule. The village is transforming. As the sun sets, I look toward Blackstone Castle, wondering what Leah has prepared for dinner. Night falls, and the cold northern wind howls outside the castle walls. I finish my rounds and enter the castle, the heavy doors sealing out the biting cold. Inside, torches cast dancing shadows, warming the ancient stone structure. My footsteps echo through the corridor as I head straight for the dining hall. Even from a distance, the rich aroma of meat whets my appetite. A warm, familiar voice greets me. "Welcome back, Crane. You're later than usual. You must be exhausted." Leah hands me a bowl of lamb stew, insisting I warm up with my favorite dish. Thank you. The warmth of the wooden bowl seeps into my hands, chasing away the chill. The soup is perfectly tempered, flavorful without being scalding. She must have kept it warm for me. Her attentiveness is touching. The lamb is tender, melting in my mouth, cooked to perfection. There's a hint of milk, along with finely diced onions and carrots that blend seamlessly into the broth. Don't just stare. Eat while it's hot. Leah smiles, revealing butter-seared steak with rosemary and a basket of fresh, fragrant bread. The meal looks exquisite. I am impressed. I never expected her to my cooking tips so quickly. She has not only learned my techniques, but added her own creative flair. In an era where spices are luxury items, her ability to create such dishes is remarkable. Back on Earth, I relied entirely on company cafeterias. I lived on takeout and snacks, never cooking for myself. My own attempts at cooking were barely edible. How is it, Crane? Leah watches me with expectant, bright blue eyes, eager for my approval. Remembering my past life, rushing through meals, or eating cold sandwiches after overtime, I feel a sudden surge of emotion. Tears well up, confusing Leah, who worries she made a mistake. It's not that. I just remembered some things. It's delicious, Leah. Reassured, she watches me eat with genuine appetite. They chat about my work and her day, enjoying the cozy atmosphere. They share stories, finding comfort in each other's company. After dinner, I help clear the table, preparing for their nightly lesson. I am fascinated by magic power, a concept entirely alien to my Earth-based education. Fiction and movies provided no real insight into the mechanics of this world's warlocks. Without a core or access to magical knowledge, I would have remained ignorant in this desolate territory. Fortunately, Leah, a 6th-rank elf warlock, is willing to teach me. Magic power isn't mysterious. It drifts everywhere in this world. Warlocks differ from ordinary people because they possess a core to absorb and store this energy. She points to her chest to demonstrate. My gaze lingers on her silhouette, momentarily distracted by her beauty. I note her physical development, struggling to keep my focus on the lesson. Crane, are you listening? Leah blushes, realizing where I am looking, and turns away. I cough to hide my embarrassment, though I appreciate the view. Anyway, that's the location. Now, listen closely to how it works. Leah quickly pivots back to the lesson to hide her fluster. To cast a spell, a warlock must guide magic power through their body. It flows like blood, gathering from within to be released through the palms and fingertips. I am confused, as I have no internal frame of reference for this sensation. I'll show you. Give me your hand. She places her hand against mine, fingertips touching. She closes her eyes, and I clearly feel the flow of energy within her. It starts as a thin, trickling stream, like blood in a vein. It quickly swells into a rushing river, seeking an outlet. Low-rank warlocks use incantations to stabilize this flow. At my level, I don't need them, except for large-scale field magic. She winks, admitting she slowed the process so I could observe it. High-rank warlocks can condense and release magic instantly. The higher the rank, the more power required, and the harder it is to control. We release magic by sketching runes, which combine into spells. This process is dangerous. Interference can cause a backlash, which is life-threatening. I nod, grateful for her patient, hands-on demonstration. Can ordinary people use magic? I ask, curious about the potential. From a modern perspective, magic is the ultimate clean energy source. It is abundant and omnipresent. History shows no sign of it ever being depleted. It requires only physical guidance, needing no external catalysts. This implies it could be utilized independently, without complex material dependencies. Finally, its diverse output forms allow for nearly universal application. Most importantly, it is entirely pollution-free, causing no environmental damage. Heavens, how could such an ideal energy source exist? It's like electricity on steroids. I was already envisioning future projects to construct a firm magic net. Unfortunately, that is impossible. Leah sighed, the magic power in her palm coalescing into a flawless, crystalline snowflake. She gently picked it up and placed it into my palm. Yet, the moment the snowflake touched me, it instantly dissolved, reverting into raw magic power that dissipated into the air. Why is that? Can't we simply inject magic power into them manually? Because ordinary people lack the capacity to store magic power, and they cannot even absorb it in the first place. Even if all those conditions were met, how could those who cannot resonate with magic power possibly control it? However, I failed to notice her left hand hidden behind her back, which was already quietly gathering a layer of frost. Icy blue veins snaked up her forearm like thorns, turning her flesh into translucent ice crystals wherever they spread. I see. I sighed, my disappointment evident. This path was clearly a dead end for now. Glancing at the moon outside, I realized it was a full moon and already quite late. You've worked hard tonight, Leah? It's late. Get some rest. As usual, I kissed Leah on the forehead and shared a good night embrace. Since the night her magic power spiraled out of control, she had grown fond of this intimacy. Naturally, I could never refuse an embrace from an elf girl. Wait. Don't go yet, Crane. I need your help with something, if you don't mind. Tonight, however, Leah seemed different. Even as the candlelight faded, her azure eyes remained unnaturally bright, glowing faintly in the dim room. She bit her lip, hesitating. Of course, Leah. What do you need? Upon receiving my affirmation, she seemed to resolve herself, asking, Could you stay and sleep with me tonight? Bathed in the soft glow of moonlight and the hearth, Leah's bedroom was shrouded in a faint, ethereal haze. My schedule had been packed, and despite my exhaustion, I found myself unable to sleep. It was embarrassing to admit, but I remained wide awake. At 26, I felt nervous entering a young woman's private quarters for the first time, let alone being in such close proximity to her. With nothing to do, I scanned the room and ceiling, noting the disciplined order of Leah's lifestyle. Since Leah moved in, she has kept the once damp, messy room spotless, filling it with a delicate jasmine scent that mirrors her own. Moments later, I heard Leah slip into the room and close the door. She had finished washing up and was now sitting on the edge of the bed, slowly undressing. Fearing she might disturb my sleep, she moved with the graceful, delicate precision of a moth dancing in the moonlight. Leah's fingers deftly unbuttoned her clothes, each soft click marking her transition from the day's exhaustion to rest. Her clothes slid off, the fabric brushing against her skin with a rhythmic, leaf-like rustle in the night air. I shouldn't be looking. Joking aside, how could I possibly fall asleep in a situation like this? If I managed to drift off now, my old man would likely materialize out of thin air just to slap me awake. I repeatedly warned myself to avoid doing anything foolish. I lay beside Leah, close enough that a single turn would bring us into contact. If I moved any closer, I could hear Leah's steady breathing. Her curves were faintly visible beneath her delicate nightgown, tracing a perfect silhouette. Her back formed a smooth, elegant curve from neck to waist, a masterpiece of natural sculpture. Her loose nightgown slipped to reveal a slender shoulder and arm, exuding a fragile, elegant charm. As Leah lay down, her silver hair cascaded across the pillow like a waterfall. Her silver hair shimmered in the firelight, perfectly complementing her silhouette and adding a touch of mysterious, captivating charm. Her slender waist and the soft curve of her hips contrasted sharply, embodying the delicate grace unique to the elf race. My heart raced. A mere turn would bring me close enough to pull this exquisite beauty into my arms. Leah would likely not refuse if I asked. However, I refrained, knowing her physical state was dire, and this was no time for such things. Though she masked her weakness well, I saw through her facade. Her seed of frost was backlashing, more violently than ever before. Knowing she suffered alone, I asked if she felt better. Surprised I was awake, she apologized for waking me. I was already awake. You don't have to be strong around me. You can relax. I can't hide anything from you, can I? Leah looked embarrassed, admitting, I feel better with you here. I didn't expect such a violent backlash tonight, she sighed. I asked, is it because of the full moon? Yes, the moonlight triggers a magic tide, causing the seed of frost to flare up. Crane, if I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have survived tonight. Leah felt like she was living in a dream. She no longer worried about food or shelter and could walk through the village, greeted by smiles. These were once unreachable luxuries, now her reality. The only remaining burden was the seed of frost, which she realized on our first night together. For some reason, being near me calmed the seed and dulled the pain. I could ignore its frost and suppress its effects, an incredible, undeniable fact. That's in the past. I'll stay with you every night if you need me. I stroked her hair. Really? She asked. I never lie, I replied. Get some rest. We have much to do tomorrow. They hoped for a peaceful night's sleep. Suddenly, wolf howls shattered the silence. Warning, unknown creature invading territory. What's happening? I recognized the howl of Zero, my ice-field wolf. Zero was well-behaved and never howled without cause. He must be fighting something. In the woods, Blun clutched his wounded abdomen, his spear broken. As a night watchman, his first shift had turned into an ambush. The freezing wind bit at his throat, but the 3 deep claw marks on his stomach hurt far more. Beside him was his partner, Thor. Thor knelt, frantically packing snow into Blun's wounds to stop the bleeding. The wounds were too deep. The snow quickly turned crimson. Had it not been for his leather armor, his intestines would have spilled out. The attack had been too sudden to sound an alarm. Thor stared 20 meters away, where Zero was locked in a brutal fight with a small humanoid creature. Zero's white fur was stained with blood, yet he fought fearlessly, teeth and claws bared. The creature fought back, claws swiping to disembowel the wolf. Zero dodged, but a claw left a bloody gash on his flank. The 2 combatants paused, circling each other. In the moonlight, the attacker was revealed. A small, withered humanoid with dry skin, razor-sharp claws, and bloodshot, mindless eyes. During the lull, the creature pulled the broken spear from its side and tossed it aside. Eerily, the wound began to heal instantly, leaving no trace. The creature was a ghoul. Zero was struggling. Despite its size, it was outmatched by the ghoul. Ghouls prefer carrion but will hunt living prey when starving. Physical attacks are ineffective against them due to rapid regeneration, and their venomous claws are lethal. Zero had to remain vigilant to protect the 2 raw night watchman recruits from being slaughtered. Zero howled for backup, trusting me to handle the rest while it stalled. Emboldened, Zero let out a deafening roar that echoed through the fir forest like an approaching storm. The ghoul responded with a savage, bloodthirsty shriek. Zero launched a surprise attack, claws aimed at the ghoul's chest. Despite earlier setbacks, Zero was a massive 200 kilograms icefield wolf, built like an ox. As the ghoul raised its arms to block, Zero shifted its target to the creature's limbs. Zero bit down on the ghoul's right arm, using its body weight to roll and attempt to tear the limb off. Its powerful jaws clamped down, leaving no room for escape. The arm dislocated instantly and began to tear under the wolf's relentless pulling. Frostbloom, a voice chanted, though the caster remained hidden. The ghoul's left limb was suddenly frozen solid, and a human figure appeared in its vision. Ghoul, a humanoid demon with tough skin and rapid regeneration. Nocturnal, pack-oriented, and light-sensitive. They possess highly corrosive internal acid. Orc bandits, now ghouls. I muttered. I swung my sword at the ghoul's neck, but the blade bounced off as if striking solid gold. The skin was harder than black armor. Normal attacks were useless. My best sword was already cracking from the impact. The ghoul seized the moment of distraction. It flung its arm, forcing Zero to release its grip and slide backward. With a hiss, the ghoul lunged at me with its remaining arm. Its claws dripped with a foul-smelling, purple toxin. I parried the strike with precise footwork. Sparks flew as steel met claw. The impact numbed my arm. Zero recovered and charged again to prevent a counterattack. The wolf slammed into the ghoul like a siege engine. Before impact, 4 ice shards pinned the ghoul's limbs to the ground. The ghoul struggled uselessly, its jaws snapping at the air. Leah appeared behind me, ice shards orbiting her. "Stop wasting magic. I'll finish this," she said. I offered a wry smile. With a high-tier warlock providing massive crowd control, I felt my own utility fading. I feared I was becoming complacent. I couldn't let her do all the dirty work. I needed the experience points. I drove my sword into the ghoul's eye, piercing its brain to end it. Low-rank ghoul killed. EXP plus 117. Level 9, 1 talent point. Achievement, Demon Hunter unlocked. Plus 1 body talent point. Harvest and the soldiers arrived, drawn by the wolf's howl. Ghouls. The blood from our training must have lured them. They cried. The soldiers recognized the corpse, their faces pale with fear. If one was here, there were likely more in the forest. Warning, ghouls breed rapidly. The nest must be destroyed to prevent an outbreak. "Leah," I said, "I have to break our plans for tonight." I looked into the oppressive darkness of the northern forest. Since there's a ghoul, this area isn't safe. I'm going into the woods to clear the nest. Leah tried to stop him. "It's too dangerous." "I'm coming with you." Harvest stood up. "Defending the village is our duty, Lord. I know the terrain. Let me join you." Harvest added, followed by the soldiers. I appreciated their resolve, but pulling them away would leave First City defenseless. Their presence would also be a liability. The city couldn't afford more casualties. "No. Your orders are to hold the village and ensure the villagers' safety. But, do I need to repeat myself?" "Understood, Lord." I turned to Leah. "Trust me. Protect everyone, and I'll return." Leah knew my stubborn nature well. She chose to trust me rather than argue. She would fulfill her duty to protect the village, honoring my trust. "Promise me you won't overdraw your magic," I urged. I worried about her reckless tendencies. She nodded, but shyly avoided my attempt to kiss her forehead. "Save it for when you return. The seed of frost's backlash is weaker after midnight. I'll be fine. I'll be back by dawn." "Protect the village," I said, heading into the forest. Frost-covered pine needles fell through the dim moonlight. The frozen snow crunched underfoot as I vanished into the darkness. Ghoul nest detected, 1 to 1 remaining. I knew these were intelligent demons, not mere beasts. I face a pack of ghouls that possess primitive intelligence and coordinated hunting tactics. My mission is to exterminate the nest. I cannot allow a single ghoul to escape. Ghouls track prey via the scent of animal viscera, a trait I can exploit to anticipate their movements. Over the past few days, I had Harvest organize hunts to drill the soldiers in teamwork. Unfortunately, the resulting bloodstains likely lured the ghouls to this area. I resolved to be more careful in the future. I inspect various animal remains in the forest, finding them picked clean of muscle. The stench of rot and blood fills the air as I search for clues. After checking several carcasses, I find a partially eaten bison near an ancient tree. The carcass is relatively intact, though its abdomen is torn open and its organs are gone, attracting buzzing flies. I use a branch to probe the bison's abdominal cavity, discovering a dark green, viscous fluid. The fluid is highly corrosive, releasing a pungent odor upon contact with the branch. While sharp, the smell is more tolerable than the stench of the rotting carcass. The branch quickly turns charred and black where it touches the slime. These claw marks. Yes, this is it. The marks match the wounds I saw on Zero earlier. As I prepare to investigate further, a horse's whinny echoes from afar. A chilling, inhuman cackle follows, piercing the evening air. I find 5 small, gaunt ghouls surrounding a large, sturdy black stallion. Despite the encirclement, the stallion shows no signs of surrender. It stands its ground, kicking out at the ghouls to fend off their assault. The horse's kicks are powerful enough to send the ghouls flying. This strength keeps the ghouls at bay for the moment. I wonder why the horse chooses to stand and fight rather than flee. Why does this always happen to me? I sigh at the familiar scene. I want to help, but my sword cannot penetrate their hides unless I hit their eyes or brains. I could handle 1 or 2, but 5 is too difficult for precision strikes. I realize I haven't used talent points from reaching level 9. I check my talent tree. Magic Immunity, Core. Technical. Introduction to Scientific Research. Flash of Inspiration. Body. Vigorous Blood. Wind of Recovery. Perception. Keen Insight. Bloodhound. Calm. Light-footed. I review other nodes like Cat's Eye Vision and Lethal Tempo, but they don't fit the current crisis. With limited points and no way to respack, I must choose carefully. I spot a node in the Calm branch. Weakness Insight. Activating Weakness Insight. Red highlights appear on the ghouls' bodies. The highlights focus on their left chests and necks. I can even perceive their beating hearts and skeletal structures. Their skin is tough, but not impenetrable. By targeting these weak points, they are no different from ordinary animals. The stallion remains active, kicking a ghoul dozens of meters away. The ghoul lands right where I am hiding. I roll aside to avoid the impact. The ghoul spots me and screeches, drawing the attention of the rest of the pack. Seeing me as easier prey than the horse, the ghouls turn toward me. I draw my sword. A ghoul leaps at me from several meters away. Its sharp bone claws are extended, ready to tear my throat. The creature expects a swift kill. I roll back, then parry the follow-up claw strike with an upward slash. I activate Weakness Insight again. The ghoul's weak spots glow red once more. These areas are soft enough for my sword to pierce without special armor-piercing tools. Guided by the talent, I strike the unhardened skin with a silver flash. The blade cuts through the flesh like a hot knife through butter. I feel a slight resistance as the blade hits bone. It is the sensation of severing a neck, distinct from my experience with bandits. The blade pushes through, slicing the skin on the back of the neck. The ghoul's head is severed from its body. The cut is so clean that the skin briefly holds before dark, viscous blood begins to seep out. The foul-smelling head rolls onto the snow and stops. The headless body collapses, and black blood gushes from the stump. It happened so fast the ghoul likely didn't realize it was dead. Killed low-level ghoul, EXP plus 117, consecutive kills plus 28. I flick the blood off my blade. The black blood contains green slime that chars the surrounding plants upon contact. Warning: ghoul digestive sacs contain high-concentration sulfuric acid. Avoid contact. Sulfuric acid? This is a treasure. I'll have Butcher dissect one later. This is an unexpected boon. The digestive fluid is remarkably useful. Sulfuric acid is essential for modern industry and research. I am happy to let the ghouls provide it. I remain cautious, however, determined not to let the corrosive substance touch me. The lead ghoul roared, signaling the remaining 3 to launch a coordinated pincer attack on me. Without looking, I parried the rear attacker with my blade and sent it flying with a brutal elbow strike. As the ghoul struggled to rise, I lunged forward with my sword. The blade pierced the ghoul's left eye, leaving a trail of foul, viscous fluid in its wake. I easily dismantled the ambush. Once their weaknesses were known, these creatures were trivial. With only 2 ghouls left, I mocked them. So, you are capable of feeling fear? Seeing the ghouls retreat while still snarling, I sneered in disdain. Don't worry, none of you are escaping. The prey had become the hunter, and the roles were now reversed. I charged, severing the ghouls' forelimbs and necks in a single fluid motion. As the final 2 fell, system notifications flooded my vision. I was thrilled by the rapid experience gain. Clearing the nest would easily net me 2 levels. The last surviving ghoul, witnessing the slaughter, turned to flee. Realizing it was hopelessly outmatched, the final ghoul assessed the situation. It feigned a roar before bolting toward the dense forest. I had no intention of letting it go. I drew a dagger and hurled it at the fleeing creature's back. With my immense strength, the blade struck the ghoul's spine with pinpoint accuracy. The ghoul shrieked in agony, but kept running. I had missed the kill shot on purpose. I needed the creature to lead me to the nest, so a non-lethal injury was perfect. Bloodhound activated. Tonight, I would hunt. To my surprise, a black wild horse remained nearby, having stood frozen during the bloody skirmish. Is this thing an idiot? I mused, though I found myself admiring the animal. Its obsidian coat, muscular build, and sleek lines were aesthetically perfect, exactly what I wanted. In this era without vehicles, I needed a mount. I had rejected the horses left by the black armor and wolf tribe, but this one was different. Zero was useless for riding, better suited as a giant sled-pulling husky. This black horse seemed like the ideal choice. As I approached, the horse didn't flee but tried to kick me with its hind legs. Oh, I see. I moved to the front and saw the horse's hooves were trapped deep in the frozen, root-tangled snow. It wasn't refusing to run, it was physically unable to. I realized the horse's hooves were ensnared by thick, tangled tree roots beneath the snow. This was the advantage of being human. Dexterity and tools made clearing the roots simple. The horse, however, only struggled, sinking deeper into the trap. Exhausted and tense, the horse was nearing death. I suppose I'm a busybody, I sighed. I'll cut you free, but don't kick me, all right? The horse, terrified by the glint of the dagger, thrashed wildly. Its movements soon slowed as exhaustion from the earlier standoff took hold. I pinned the horse's leg and began clearing the snow. I found the tangled roots. Relax, I'm saving your life, I soothed, patting its back. The blade bit into the frozen, iron-hard tree roots. With every root severed, the horse's tremors traveled through the blade to my hand. As the final root snapped, the horse let out a pained, shuddering whinny. It collapsed into the snow, finally free. I caught its neck, revealing a gruesome, ice-crusted wound where the roots had dug in. Stay still. I pressed cloth against the bleeding wound. The horse's warm, grassy breath hit my neck as it watched me with wide, fearful eyes. Without help, the horse would die of infection or be eaten by predators. Distant wolf howls echoed through the woods. I felt the horse's fading pulse and saw the despair in its eyes. Fine, I'll see this through. Tip: nearby reeds can be crushed to stop bleeding and reduce swelling. I applied the crushed reeds as a makeshift poultice and bandaged the wound. The horse tensed as the bandage touched its raw flesh. As I moved to retreat, the horse gently caught my leather strap with its teeth, stopping me without tearing the material. You want me to continue? The horse nodded, its dull eyes showing a flicker of intelligence. It cooperated, lifting its leg and helping adjust the bandages. Once finished, the horse nudged my shoulder, tugging at my clothes. Tip: it trusts and likes you. All right, watch out for roots next time. See you later. The horse seemed attached, but I abandoned the idea of taming it while it was still injured. I watched it disappear into the brush before following, bloodhound, toward the ghoul nest. Once triggered, the bloodhound effect would persist until the target died. The trail was a vivid, bloody path leading directly to a cave entrance. Ghoul nest discovered. Hidden in the brush, the nest would have been impossible to find without the stench and the bloodhound mark. With cat's eye vision inactive, I needed a torch to navigate the pitch-black interior. For someone with my technical knowledge, crafting a torch was trivial. I wrapped cloth around a branch, coated it in animal fat, and ignited it with flint. The cave was far deeper than expected, resembling a complex labyrinth. I moved through the tunnels, finding only blood and bones, with no sign of the ghouls themselves. The stench of decay grew suffocatingly thick. Hopefully, there's something deeper inside. I felt the bloodhound signal intensifying. The fleeing ghoul was definitely hiding somewhere in these depths. As I ventured deeper, a rhythmic dripping echoed through the cavern. I raised my torch, but the walls were bare. The sound grew closer, carrying a thick, muffled resonance that suggested it wasn't water. Warning: ghoul approaching. I rolled left instantly. A heavy thud shook the ground where I had just stood, occupied now by a dark, unknown mass. I stood, torch extended, revealing faint, eerie green glimmers in the darkness ahead. As the light spread, I found myself surrounded by over a dozen drooling ghouls. Their pale eyes flickered in the dark. This is trouble. Before I could finish, the pack lunged, seeing me as easy prey. They were wrong. Extermination progress. May 27th. The ghouls surged forward like a black tide. They scrambled over the uneven ground, their pale bodies blurring as they let out chilling, guttural laughs. I crouched, bracing my sword to parry the lead ghoul's vicious strike. The impact numbed my arm, but I pivoted, slicing the creature's limb and spraying black blood. The wounded ghoul snarled, snapping its jagged maw toward my neck. Yet, it had exposed its weakness. Even the toughest hide covers a soft interior. I drove my sword through its throat and out the back of its skull, kicking the carcass away to face the next. Killed low-level ghoul, EXP plus 117. Killed low-level ghoul, EXP plus 117. Consecutive kills plus 28. The sensation of blade meeting bone fueled my adrenaline, masking my fatigue. I didn't need weakness insight, or even my eyes. I hunted by pure instinct. It was a one-sided slaughter. As more ghouls flanked me, I lunged into their center, forcing them to collide. Before I could steady myself, a withered hand shot from the ground, clawing at my ankle. I decapitated the creature with a downward strike, splashing foul, dark green blood. With stamina to spare, I, splattered in gore, looked more like a demon than my prey. The cave roared with ghouls' screeches and my heavy breathing. The ghouls retreated into a semicircle, their pale eyes hungry for my flesh. Their hesitation gave me the perfect opening to pick them off. My silver blade tore through any who dared approach. I no longer needed to activate my skills. Understanding their weaknesses made the kills effortless. Silence eventually returned, and the extermination bar neared completion. Extermination progress, 26/27. One remained. The final one was likely a boss, possibly a mid or high-tier ghoul. Retreating now would only allow the pack to recover and multiply. I had to end it tonight while the situation remained under control. My hands and blade were slick with dark, viscous blood. My spirit held firm. One last kill, then home. I entered a gourd-shaped chamber, a dead end with a single entrance. The opening was narrow. Entering dark zone, warning, extreme danger ahead. I stepped forward, resolute. The stench of rot and blood was overwhelming, assaulting my senses. My intuition screamed to leave, but I was committed to finishing this. I gripped my sword, my boots crunching over rib bones. The air was thick with mold and decay, the true core of the nest. Blood-red mycelium carpeted the walls, pulsing like living veins. Beyond the red web, a clicking sound of grinding bone echoed from the dark. When the sound ceased, I pressed on. Crimson mycelium hung from the ceiling like a vascular network, weaving human-sized cocoons. My heel caught in a gelatinous substance, and dark red fluid oozed out, binding my ankle. As I wrenched my foot free, the cocoons above contracted. Hell! The cocoons bulged, then burst, releasing hundreds of barbed tentacles. They snatched animal remains to feed, sealing the entrance behind me. The rupture agitated the mycelium, and the creature in the dark took notice. This last one, it's still a ghoul, right? The ground shook under heavy footsteps. This was no mere ghoul. A troll. A pair of savage, terrifying claws tore through the red mycelium, though the beast remained hidden. Please don't be a werewolf. A 2-meter-tall nightmare emerged, a skeletal head topped with massive antlers. It was a wendigo. Its body was unnaturally stretched, muscles taut beneath withered, ash-gray skin. It looked like rotting flesh stripped from a corpse, reeking of putrefaction. Its limbs ended in sharp bone claws, and its joints clicked with every movement. Ghostly green fire burned in its deep eye sockets, fixated on my soul. Mycelium roots connected to its skin, feeding it and secreting corrosive slime. Wendigo, a tall, withered, bloodthirsty demon that craves human flesh, characterized by its exposed skull and massive antlers. The air turned frigid, the temperature dropping as the Wendigo exhaled. Warning: Wendigo marked as a high-threat target. Before I could react, the Wendigo tore free from the vines and charged. I used the torchlight to track its movements and narrowly dodge its strikes. After dodging 4 claw attacks, I kept my eyes on the exit, looking for a way to retreat. The Wendigo's claws raked the walls, sending debris crashing down. It scaled the vertical walls with ease, its bone spurs anchoring into the red nest membrane. The ruptured mycelium sprayed fluorescent green pus, causing the surrounding thorns to spasm. I rolled to avoid the acid, crashing back first into a cluster of hanging cocoons. Viscous hatching fluid soaked my back, and the distraction allowed the Wendigo's bone tail to slam into my left shoulder. A faint snap of bone echoed in the cavern, and I dropped my torch as my left hand lost its grip. I slid into a rock crevice, realizing I had stumbled into the heart of the blood thorns, where pulsating crimson roots fed the cocoons above. These cocoons likely held ghoul larvae that would soon emerge. As the Wendigo's claws gouged the rock beside me, the suffocating proximity made my heart race. Fortunately, the Wendigo had missed. I seized the moment to swing my blade at the monster's weak point. I hoped to pierce its brain through the eye, just as I had with the ghouls. However, the Wendigo was faster than expected, twisting its head to dodge. The desperate strike only left a shallow scratch on its skull. The slick, fleshy ground offered no stable footing. The Wendigo's skin was tougher than any ghoul's, rendering my attack nearly useless. My lack of armor-piercing power was painfully evident. Facing the Wendigo, I found its hide as impenetrable as a fortress wall. Even with weakness in sight, I couldn't land a blow on its vulnerable spots. Consequently, I was completely outmatched. My left arm was already crippled from their initial brawl. Thankfully, my wind of recovery talent allowed me to heal my shallow wounds through steady breathing. Before I could retract my sword, the Wendigo struck again, shattering my weapon. The blade, a trophy from a black-armored knight, could not withstand the monster's immense force. With a sickening crunch, cracks spiderwebbed across the steel. The already worn blade disintegrated like a shattered mirror. It bent into an arc before snapping into 17 jagged shards. A flying fragment embedded itself in my right shoulder, sending me crashing into a cluster of mycelium. As my blood mixed with the slime, the mycelium surged toward me like sharks sensing prey. This was how they fed, ensnaring prey and dragging them to the ceiling. The victim's blood and nutrients would then be pumped into the cocoons to hatch more ghouls. If left unchecked, this demonic nest would spawn a catastrophe. I forced myself up with the broken hilt, watching the Wendigo approach. The pain in my shoulder was agonizing, but I had to move or die. Cough. I spat blood, feeling my broken ribs and useless arms. It was a miracle I could still stand given my internal injuries. Only an adrenaline-fueled state kept me from losing consciousness. I had no chance of escape or victory. I hurled a bone fragment at the Wendigo's eye. The monster's eyelids closed, revealing armored scales that deflected the bone with a metallic clang. It was like hitting steel with a twig. My heart felt ready to burst, and my evasion was failing. As I dodged another tail swipe, my right tibia snapped under the strain. My movement slowed, and the tail's hook tore 3 deep gashes into my abdomen. New wounds piled onto the old. My healing couldn't keep pace with this level of damage. The Wendigo herded me toward the southwest corner, where a pile of bones lay. Realizing I would be turned into fertilizer, I grabbed my fallen torch and threw it at the thorns. I hoped the narrow space would provide a temporary reprieve, even if it meant risking a fire. The flames kept the Wendigo at bay, granting me a moment to breathe. Though the fire caused no real damage, the monster feared it instinctively. The heat melted the frost on the cavern walls, causing water to drip. As I curled in the corner, the Wendigo's growls drew closer. Notice, hidden passage discovered. The burning mycelium revealed a jagged opening in the rock wall. It looked less like a natural cave and more like the throat of a beast, lined with stalactites and glowing with a biological membrane. I cleared the ash, noting deliberate chisel marks around the entrance. The roots had been woven to camouflage this passage. A mysterious red light pulsed from deep within, synchronized with my own breathing. As I leaned in, a warm, foul-smelling breeze drifted from the depths. I didn't care where it led. It was a place the Wendigo couldn't follow. The Wendigo's frost began to extinguish the flames, and it prepared to strike again. With no time left, I crawled into the hole. The space was cramped, and my heart hammered against my ribs. The Wendigo did not give up. It clawed at the entrance, its acidic slime melting the stone into a honeycomb pattern. A drop of the slime hit my clothing, hissing as it burned. Every scratch brought death closer. The monster's claws reached into the tunnel, whistling like the scythe of death. I pressed myself against the wall, eyes fixed on the opening. Covered in dust, blood, and sweat, I looked wretched. Yet, my eyes burned with the desperate will to survive. Outside, many ghouls still roamed the night. The village was plunged into a deathly, oil-black silence. The moon was swallowed by thick, churning clouds. The wind carried the stench of rotting flesh and damp earth. Martha's goat woke suddenly, its pupils dilating as it sensed the approaching threat. A small creature cowered in the shed, tail tucked, eyes reflecting distorted shadows near the fence. The shadows were too thin and gaunt to be human. Paralyzed by terror, it couldn't even whimper before a ghoul's claws pierced its throat. Warm blood splattered onto the drying meat, and the sound of tearing muscle vanished into the wind, unnoticed by anyone. As the wooden door creaked open, Martha was fast asleep, dreaming of her cured meat. Life in fur territory had improved significantly under Crane's leadership, offering her hope for the future. Suddenly, 5 withered, corpse-green fingers slipped through the door gap. The ghoul had slipped into the village, exploiting the night watchman's blind spots and the cover of darkness. Despite the guards on duty, the village was too vast to fully secure, and a single ghoul posed a lethal threat to all of Fur City. The creature hunched into the room, its joints popping like rotting wood. Its claws sank into the floor, leaving behind viscous, corrosive green liquid that pitted the wood. With unfocused eyes, it loomed over the sleeping Martha, a twisted grin spreading across its face. With the perimeter breached and villagers asleep, Fur Territory faced a bloody nightmare. I finally reached the end of the tunnel. The Wendigo trailing me seemed to lose its hunting instinct, abandoning the pursuit. Before me lay a cramped, ancient stone chamber, resembling a forgotten prison. The room contained only a heavy two-handed blade embedded in black rock and scattered, unrecognizable bones. The atmosphere suggested the chamber existed solely to guard these relics. Forgotten two-handed heavy blade. Zhongya, the only prompt provided. The air in the chamber felt thick and viscous, as if solidified. Only the dark red glow from the hilt, like molten lava, cast shifting shadows on the walls. How convenient, I mused. My sword breaks, and here is a bigger one. The blade was embedded in basalt, too heavy for even a healthy me to lift, let alone a wounded one. I observed the runes. They looked like self-twisting, glowing totems rather than craftsmanship, pulsing like magma. The hilt was long, designed for 2 hands, featuring a striking skull ornament with claw-like guards. Though only half exposed, the blade exceeded 1.6 meters, a true two-handed heavy blade. The design felt alien, but after confirming it seemed safe, I gripped the hilt with my only functional hand. A sharp pain flared in my palm as the skull ornament began to shift. The bone teeth parted, revealing dense, sharp barbs. Like leeches, the dark gold spikes pierced my flesh. Blood flowed down the hilt, guided by grooves into the skull's eye sockets. As the sockets filled with crimson, the blade began to vibrate in sync with my heartbeat, the rhythm accelerating. The sword was alive. As the guards fully extended, I felt my soul being drained. I tried to let go, but I couldn't move my hand. It wasn't me holding the sword had seized me. Warning, blood loss critical. Body stats insufficient. Upgrade. I had no choice but to gamble. I had saved 4 talent points, hoping they would be enough to pull the blade free. I had intended to distribute them evenly, but now I had to commit everything to the body branch. I tapped the plus signs, unlocking 4 new talents. Charged Heavy Strike, for damage and stuns, and Evil Power, allowing one-handed use of two-handed weapons, requires 5 body points. Unwavering, for stability, and Harlan Fist King, for unarmed damage. As my body level rose, I felt my strength surge, and the blade began to loosen. The screech of metal against basalt echoed through the chamber. Move, just move. I roared, ignoring the blood dripping from my hand. My palm smelled of burnt flesh as my boiling blood etched web-like grooves into the rock. The golden runes revealed their true form, translucent, vein-like tentacles. They crawled up my arm, greedily consuming my blood. As I neared my limit, the blade hummed in satisfaction. The skull's eyes erupted in crimson light, turning the chamber into a hellscape. With a final, desperate heave, I tore the blade from the basalt. As my consciousness faded, the hilt's grip suddenly released me. In its place, I felt a cold, strange resonance. Heavy blade. Zhongya has manifested. The sword clattered to the ground. My vision blurred, and the world fell into a deathly silence. Darkness consumed my sight, the crimson light fading into nothingness. The cold was absolute, threatening to drag me into the ice abyss. Adrenaline exhausted, I began to lose consciousness. Suddenly, a dormant power within my blood surged, compensating for the blood loss. In a distant hall, a graceful figure lounged on a throne beneath a crystal chandelier. Bored by a report, she tapped her obsidian armrest. Veiled in black, her face remained hidden. Below the throne, 37 bone steps were embedded with the hearts of those who had defied her. Your Highness, the tributes from the ice abyss rift. A faint cracking sound echoed through the hall. The figure stopped tapping, her attention caught. Her demon attendants fell silent, crushed by her overwhelming pressure. Her veil shifted, revealing a perfect jawline as she stared at a ring on her finger, which was pulsing with blood-like veins. For the first time in years, the soul stone on her ring was melting, the cracking sound audible. "Get out," she commanded, her voice dripping with absolute authority. The demon attendants' scales bristled, and they vanished into black mist as the royal court's master spoke. None dared defy her. A resonance echoed through her bloodline. A mithril ring shattered, and a soul stone fell onto the crimson carpet. As the stone cracked, a trapped spirit tried to escape, but she crushed it with a delicate foot, her black rose dress sweeping the remains into ash. Beneath her veil, she bit her fingertip, letting a drop of blood fall into the spirit's ashes. The ashes coalesced into a phantom mirror, causing her to shift her languid posture. This aura. The mirror revealed me, unconscious in a cave. She traced my bloodied face on the mirror. Her blood drop pierced space, landing directly on my brow. The blood flowed into my veins, and dragon-like scales emerged on my right arm. She lifted a corner of her veil, revealing a beauty that could make angels fall. "Is it you? You've grown so much." She caressed my face through the mirror with rare tenderness. "I hope you like my gift." The arrogant master of the royal court showed such emotion, causing the palace to tremble. Icicles fell from the ceiling, turning into butterflies before touching her. As the last butterfly landed on her finger, the mirror vanished. "Is it over? Time to visit the Northern Territory." She whispered to the empty hall, and the butterflies formed a kneeling demon. "Lu, go for me." "Yes, Your Highness." Minutes later, I opened my eyes. My pupils were no longer pitch black, but flecked with a glowing, blood-red hue. Strange, why do I feel like I'm being watched? I felt my right hand itch. Black scales were rapidly spreading from my fingertips toward my wrist. The transformation stopped at my elbow. I studied the scales. They were like a second skin, layered at the joints to allow full movement. A bone-like ring formed at my elbow, marking the limit of the mutation. As I clenched my fist, my forearm muscles bulged, revealing enhanced tendons beneath the scales. The black keratin rippled with my movements, and faint blue light pulsed through the gaps in the armor. Most striking were the claws, which were bone-like extensions of my nail beds, perfectly aligned with my palm. I punched the stone wall. My hand sank in a palm's depth, spiderwebbing the rock with cracks. The power was immense, and I felt no pain. I felt as if I were no longer entirely human. Supported by wind of recovery and vigorous blood, my injuries began to knit together. The pain was now bearable. "So, this is all you wanted," I muttered. I flexed my demonic hand, the claws stirring the air. Nearby lay Zhongya, the blade that had drained my blood. As I gripped the hilt, the sword's inscriptions turned into vein-like patterns, connecting to my arm's energy. The skull-shaped spikes retracted, making the sword an extension of my hand. "You drank enough of my blood. Be useful." I targeted the basalt rock that had previously trapped me. The sword felt heavy, but for my enhanced physique, it was easy to wield. I had no trouble swinging it with one hand. My stats were more than sufficient. I tightened my muscles, unleashing power far beyond human limits, and swung Zhongya. The basalt shattered instantly. The blade was incredibly sharp. Time to settle the score. I threw a stone against the wall, creating a loud thud. The nearby Wendigo, sensing me, grew frantic. It roared and lunged, but its massive body could only force its head and forelimbs into the cave. For me, that was enough. As the Wendigo pushed in, I lunged forward with Zhongya. The blade pierced the monster's supposedly impenetrable armor. The sword drove straight into its right eye. A shrill, agonizing howl tore through the cave. "Huh, so you can bleed after all," I mocked. If it could bleed, it could be killed. The Wendigo, wounded, abandoned its attempt to reach me. It roared in pain and retreated to gain distance. Its massive body was clumsy in the narrow space, forcing it to retreat to open ground. I seized the chance, exiting the cave to face the monster. A life-or-death battle began, and I was confident of victory. The Wendigo lashed its tail, its scales opening to reveal jagged barbs. A direct hit would have sliced me in two. Having learned from the previous fight, I didn't block. I rolled aside, narrowly dodging the lethal strike. My reaction speed felt significantly faster than before. The Wendigo's tail had a massive reach. It repositioned itself, using its bulk to block the cave entrance. I smirked. I wasn't planning on running. The monster climbed onto the cave ceiling, watching me from above. But a monster is just a monster. Losing patience, the Wendigo leaped down to pounce. It was faster than before. I, unable to dodge, crossed my blade to parry. The immense pressure forced me to one knee, but I held my ground. I hadn't expected to survive the impact of its full weight. Had my physical stats truly surged that much from a nap? My knee shattered the ground beneath me. Stalemating would lead to defeat. I needed to break the deadlock. Harlan Fist King activated. I switched Zhongye to my left hand, clenched my armored right fist, and struck the Wendigo's remaining left eye. The blow landed squarely in the eye socket. Unlike previous shallow marks, this strike shattered the socket and obliterated the crimson eyeball. With the demon's right arm and the Harlan Fist King talent, my base damage multiplied over 100-fold. I seized the opening to sever the Wendigo's right claw with Zhongye. Blinded, the Wendigo thrashed wildly, hammering the ground. It then tore open its own chest, ripping out exposed bone spurs. A blood-red mist swirled around it, making its appearance even more grotesque. The Wendigo hurled the bone spurs at the cavern ceiling, causing rocks to collapse. The tremors were like a minor earthquake, but, unwavering, kept me balanced. The Wendigo blocked the exit, trapping me. Whether by bone spurs or falling debris, I faced certain death. I had to kill the beast or be buried alive. The cavern was unstable. Delay meant death. The frenzied Wendigo was impossible to approach. How could I pierce its heart? Weakness insight activated. The heart was visible, but the Wendigo's defense was impenetrable. A frontal assault on this maddened beast was suicide. I knew I had only one fleeting chance. As the Wendigo swept its tail, I braced myself, blade forward. The impact forced me to cough up blood. I was thrown against the jagged ceiling, my back shredded by stone spikes. Crack. My ribs broke, but adrenaline masked the pain. My goal was achieved. I used my final strength to dive, driving Zhongye toward the Wendigo's heart. The blade pierced the beast's back armor and entered its body. My momentum drove the blade through its chest. The Wendigo's struggle ceased, and its massive body collapsed. The feedback confirmed the heart was pierced. Kill Wendigo. EXP plus 2077. Level 13. Talent point plus 1. Nest cleared. I had won. But the cave was collapsing. I had to escape. Leah is waiting. I cannot die here. I stumbled toward the exit. Seconds after I crawled out, the entrance was sealed by falling rocks. Exhausted and wounded, I lost consciousness. Before blacking out, I saw a familiar shadow, a horse. Meanwhile, a ghoul crept toward the sleeping villagers. Martha dreamt of her late husband. Tears of joy streamed down her face in her sleep. But this dream signaled a grim reunion. A ghoul approached, its acidic drool corroding the floor. The goat in the shed had already been silenced. Harvest had organized the night watchmen as First City's last line of defense. But they were too few to guard every corner, allowing the ghoul to infiltrate. Martha, overworked and exhausted, slept soundly. She didn't wake even when the neighbor's hound barked. She merely turned over. That movement shifted the temporary support beam of her roof. The rotted beam snapped under the weight of the snow. Snap! The roof collapsed onto Martha. She woke to see a blood-stained ghoul grinning at her. Her scream died in her frozen throat. She kicked out, but her resistance only excited the beast. Ghouls preferred fresh prey over carrion. The ghoul shrieked, eager for the fat-rich organs that would sustain it through the winter. There! Thor, the lookout, spotted the collapsed roof and shouted. The night watchman rushed over. Martha's desperate cry finally pierced the wind. Hurry! They were 100 meters away. Too far? Suddenly, ice shards flashed past them. Leah had sensed the ghoul and cast Frost Shadow Blade. Standing in the center of First City, her silver hair flowed, and her blue eyes glowed with magic. She used her magic as a sensory ripple to detect danger. She could cover the entire village without needing a Tier 6 domain spell. She could support any location, and low-tier spells like Frost Shadow Blade cost her little. Fully recovered, she was no longer the exhausted victim she had been. Her presence allowed me to safely hunt the nest. Thor arrived to find black blood and the ghoul's severed, ice-pierced claws. The beast had chewed off its own limbs to escape. Thor tracked the blood to a barn corner. Remembering his injured comrade Blun, Thor roared, "Demon, die!" His spear strike failed to penetrate the ghoul's hide. Harvest arrived with 7 archers. "Don't get close. Maintain the formation," Harvest ordered, drawing his recurved bow. He fired an armor-piercing arrow into the ghoul's eye, driving it straight into its brain. The arrow was buried halfway into the ghoul's eye socket, its fletching still vibrating. "Keep firing. Ensure the kill." At Harvest's command, the crossbowmen engaged their levers, aiming their bolts at the ghoul's heart and head. 7 crossbows fired in unison, turning the ghoul's head into a pincushion. The specialized armor-piercing arrows significantly boosted the crossbow's lethality. While slower than bows, their penetration was superior. But the threat wasn't over. Harvest had seen boars charge after being struck by arrows and snakes bite even after decapitation. To ensure safety, he ordered the crossbowmen to retreat and the infantry to advance. Dozens of spears stabbed repeatedly into the ghoul's torso. By piercing the entire body, he ensured the ghoul could not survive. Seeing the mangled, motionless remains, Harvest finally exhaled. "It's dead." I felt cold and weak, my consciousness on the brink of collapse. I longed for rest, but in the desolate northern forest, I never expected to find a cabin belonging to a reclusive, polite warlock. She invited me in for tea and sweets before heading out into the snow to forage. She instructed me to rest and not wander, implying I could leave whenever I wished. Clearly, she didn't want me snooping into her secrets. As I rose to explore, the cabin suddenly split apart. It transformed into countless tentacles, wrapping around my face like the vines in the ghoul cave. It felt like someone was smearing my cheeks with a paint-laden brush. The sticky, hot sensation jolted me awake in a panic. It was just a nightmare. The creature licking me was a black horse I vaguely recognized. I was lying on a simple bed in a cabin identical to my dream. Whether it was a dream or not, this was a welcome refuge after the putrid cave. The black horse remained oblivious to my waking state. It stretched its neck through the window, continuing to lick my face. "Oh, you're awake?" A rough voice came from nearby. I turned to see another person. A tall man with a weathered, sturdy face stood there. His thick beard and bone necklace gave him a rugged appearance. Beneath messy brown hair, his deep eyes looked at me with concern. I was relieved it wasn't the warlock from my dream. "Who are you?" I asked, scanning the room. The room had a rustic, forest dweller aesthetic, with furniture made from intertwined tree roots and branches. The man smiled kindly. "Relax, I'm Dude, a druid. This horse brought you here. You were badly wounded. I didn't think you'd make it," he added, gesturing to the horse. It had a bandage wound when it arrived, which I finished treating. "Since it's so fond of you, you must have bandaged it first." I tried to sit up, but winced in pain. "Don't move, your wounds aren't healed." Dude set down his mortar and helped me sit up with cushions. "I'm brewing medicine for you." I noticed a stove in the corner with a steaming, fragrant medicinal pot. My right arm's black scales had faded, returning to normal. "Thank you, Dude. I'm Kyle Crane." "Kyle Crane? How did you get hurt? Did you fight the ghouls?" Dude tended the stove. "Sort of, but then I met a Wendigo." "A Wendigo? No wonder. You're lucky to be alive." Dude muttered. "I thought it was dead." "I'll have to be careful." "It is dead. I killed it." "You?" Dude laughed. "Don't brag, Kyle Crane." A black cat whispered into Dude's ear. Dude's expression shifted to disbelief, then he nodded at me. He poured the medicine into a bowl and handed it over. "Drink this to recover. Appraisal, non-toxic, safe to drink." I drank the bitter brew. A warm current spread through my body, soothing me. How long was I out? About 2 hours. Dawn is in 30 minutes. What? I promised to return by dawn. I must go. I coughed, my injuries still severe. Only my enhanced constitution allowed me to even stand. I was desperate to go home, but in no state to walk. The black horse neighed excitedly, lowering its head to me. Lucky you, it's inviting you to ride. As a druid, Dude understood the horse perfectly. You helped me, so take this. Dude tore a piece from his bone necklace. It was a bone whistle made from a horse's tibia. This is... I examined the simple artifact. A rare treasure. It's the whistle of Ural. Ural, I repeated. Our only god. One call, and the forest obeys. Dude said reverently. Tie a strand of the horse's hair to it. It will come to you from anywhere. Don't be shy, take it. You did me a huge favor. Seeing my hesitation, Dude laughed. Let it take you home. As dawn approached, rhythmic hoofbeats echoed. The black horse carried me out of the fir forest. It approached the village, its hooves kicking up dust like golden mist. A soldier spotted the movement, fearing it was a ghoul. Just as he prepared to sound the alarm, he realized it was the black horse carrying the long-lost Kyle Crane. It's the Lord. He's returned safely. Last night, I hunted in the ghoul nest while Leah and the night watchman fought off an invasion. As I suspected, ghouls never hunt alone. One sighting implies many more lurking in the shadows. The recent blizzard clearly impacted the Northern Territory. Ghouls usually haunt deep forests, feeding on animal carcasses, rarely encroaching on human villages. This village, already ravaged by bandits, suffered further from this sudden ghoul infestation. Fortunately, the ghoul nest has been eradicated. Thanks to early detection and the united defense of soldiers and villagers, no one was harmed. However, 2 livestock pens were destroyed, and several houses were severely damaged. Given the flimsy wooden structures, it is a miracle no one was injured. As the sun rose, the ghouls retreated, marking a total victory for the humans. I approached the village on my black horse, exhausted and nursing wounds from the night's battle. Seeing Leah, my tension finally evaporated. Dismounting to fulfill my promise to her, my vision suddenly blurred and darkened. I had pushed my body to the limit. Surviving a Wendigo's tail strike was a miracle, let alone the subsequent combat. With blood loss, internal injuries, and fractures, I was essentially a walking corpse. Before losing consciousness, I saw Leah rushing toward me. Crane, can you hear me? Please wake up. Leah's voice trembled like a flickering candle. Tears rolled down her cheeks, landing on my pale face. She traced my features, filled with regret for not being by my side to share the burden. What are you staring at? Clean up the battlefield. Harvest dispersed the soldiers, ordering them to account for every arrow or face punishment. The soldiers retreated, respecting their moment. They knew they only survived because of me and Leah. I held the line, but you promised to return safely, Leah whispered, choking back sobs. She rocked me gently, trying to coax me back to consciousness. She kissed my forehead, the warmth acting as a catalyst for me to open my eyes. In that moment, the world fell silent. Leah saw only me. Leah? Don't cry, I'm fine. Just tired. I murmured, my consciousness returning. I was relieved to wake up in my own room, free from nightmares. The memory of the house turning into vines still haunted me. I focused my gaze on Leah, who had fallen asleep on my chest. Her breathing was soft. Her face finally relaxed after a sleepless night. My gear was neatly stored, and my sword, Zhongya, was placed by the door. I noticed my face had been carefully cleaned of blood and grime. Overcome with tenderness, I decided not to wake her. I carefully moved to get out of bed. After resting, I was surprised to find my wounds mostly healed. The wind of recovery, talent, and Dude's druid concoction were incredibly effective. I gently lifted Leah to move her. She stirred, instinctively snuggling closer to me. I laid her down softly and covered her with a blanket. After watching her for a moment, I left the room. Outside, I spotted Griffin and decided to ask for a report. Boss, you're awake? The blue-feathered Griffin circled me, looking delighted. Yes. Tell me what happened last night, briefly. Let's walk so she can sleep. Griffin recounted the night's events. It had been a peaceful night otherwise. The training had paid off. The soldiers held their ground far better than during the bandit raid. Satisfied, I decided to grant everyone 2 days of leave. Those on duty would receive triple pay as compensation. I pushed open the castle doors, letting the harsh sunlight flood the hall. Accustomed to the gloom, I shielded my eyes as I adjusted to the light. Frost clung to my lashes as I looked out at the village. The scent of smoke and charred remains lingered, mirroring my heavy thoughts. I walked toward the village and overheard two night watchmen talking. Their hands still shook, but they were buzzing with excitement. Did you see? Ghouls aren't invincible. I killed two. One showed off his bloodstained spear. Liar. I killed those. The other countered. But the Lord is stronger. Did you see his wounds? He wiped out the entire nest alone. And Lady Leah's magic is terrifying. It's a blessing to have her protecting us. Oh, good morning, Lord. The guard snapped to attention. I'm glad to see you're still energetic, I said. You did well. I'm giving you 2 days off to recover. Thank you, Lord. No casualties was the best outcome, but the village's infrastructure remained a concern. The wooden huts were too flimsy to withstand even minor threats. With the zombie horde looming in 2 months, these defenses were woefully inadequate. To improve defenses, stone construction is the bare minimum. Reinforced steel is out of the question. It's scarce, and current technology can't manufacture it. It seems I must shift my talent points toward technology. Previous encounters with black armor, bandits, ghouls, and wendigos forced me to dump all my points into physical stats, leaving my other talent trees neglected. I know that no matter how strong I am, I cannot fight a zombie horde alone. I observe the talent tree in my mind. Unlike the flexible physical and mental branches, the technology branch requires a strict, sequential unlock order. In short, technology development is gated by prerequisite tech. For example, fire and steel must be unlocked before pottery, glass, or cement. Subsequent techs like Art of Explosion and Steam Age also require tiered unlocking. Cement, gunpowder, and steam engines are game changers. Cement, in particular, is like using a cheat code for infrastructure. The villagers' wooden huts are unacceptable. Tear them down and rebuild. Infrastructure takes priority over immediate profit. With the soul of an infrastructure-obsessed builder, I am ready to dump all my funds into this project. To local nobles, spending this much time and money on peasant housing instead of a palace makes me look like a fool. I am viewed as an absolute idiot. Yet, I am confident that as long as the cash flow holds, the returns will be unimaginable. Art of Explosion means gunpowder, the ultimate weapon to transition from cold steel to firearms. While this world has magic and battle chi, the vast majority of the population are still ordinary humans. Even for those with powers, a high explosive shell is the great equalizer. Without hesitation, I spent my last point on fire and steel. A flood of information surged into my mind, my pupils flashing with a fleeting crimson light. The knowledge felt familiar, like the compulsory education from my past life, now refined into practical manufacturing processes. I no longer just had theory. I now possessed the complete industrial workflow. Real steelmaking isn't just chemistry. It's the culmination of thousands of years of human experience and precise processing. I never thought I'd use this knowledge again, I muttered. I smiled self-deprecatingly. This basic knowledge was my starting point. When I was dying at the cave entrance, I questioned if my life was worth it. I could have lived a mediocre, tax-collecting life in the north, but was that really what I wanted? If Leah hadn't appeared and I hadn't activated the talent tree, my life would have remained unchanged. In my past life, I was a cog in the machine for 30 years, achieving nothing. But here, I have a second chance, and I am no longer alone. Whether I become a nobody or a legend, I have my answer. Zombie horde arrival, 56 days, 12 hours. As the steam rose from the forge, Willis dropped his hammer in frustration. I didn't flinch as sparks hit my clothes, staring blankly at the broken sword blank. The cracks in the blade mocked my attempt to smelt steel with charcoal. The apprentice sighed, noting that the pine charcoal was barely hot enough. The furnace itself was at risk of cracking. This was the 7th failed batch. Willis, sweating and scarred, admitted that even with his experience as a dwarf-trained apprentice, the materials weren't up to par. Willis had previously mentioned his time as an apprentice to a dwarf blacksmith. That master had been lost to alcohol, leaving Willis to settle in this northern town. It seems dwarves are the master smiths here. Recruiting them would be a wise move. My problem isn't just technical knowledge. It's the slow, iterative process of industrial revolution. Willis still has a long way to go. The village forge still uses primitive charcoal-fired iron smelting.